to the bomb hole.
Bomb Hole Podcast.
It's going to be very hot. It's going to be very uncomfortable for everybody.
The bomb hole.
We're gonna slide down them big hills, you know what I mean, on the big, nice burgundy snowboard.
Okay, here we go again. We are back in the booth at the Bomb Hole, which is presented by Pub Beer and Liquid Death. Now, Stony Buds, how we doing?
So good, my dog.
Always love hearing that. To my left, it's a treat. We have Mark Carter in the booth. Mark, what's happening?
Howdy, happy to be here.
Happy to have you sitting next to us. Now, for people that are unfamiliar, Mark is a pro snowboarder by winter, rancher by summer, raised in Ten Sleep, population of 260 people. Now he's a professional snowboarder. He's in the biggest movies with Travis Rice. He's a small-town kid with a global perspective. But let's just get right into it. So where are you coming from right now? What were you just doing?
Well, yeah, just took a shower last night after about 6 days in the desert. We have a big southern lease in southern Wyoming. It's a big BLM lease with a lot of cattle on it. So I've been up there helping my family gather all the cattle off of it and ship them back to the fields for the winter. So just a lot of eating dust and ripping the dirt bike, horses. It's kind of wild, man. It's cool to be out there because it's literally you won't see anybody. And you drive through that country and it's just so barren. But until you actually like embrace it and get into it, you really see the beauty in it. And just like no cell service, just wild horses and elk, and having that purpose to just you have one job: get all the cows to the corral. It might take it took us 6 days, gathered over probably. Well, we helped our neighbor too, who runs on the other half of the lease. And the lease, to put it in perspective, is around 350 square miles. So it's big, and that kind of country with for roughly 3,000 head of cattle strung out, you need some manpower, but we use the motorcycles a lot to get around them. And then the horses once we wrangle the big groups, the herds, the horses push them towards in the direction towards the corrals we want to go. And then the bikes are just out tucking in the sides and grabbing the ones that are out on the little pockets that you're not seeing. So, my hands are numb. I slept in my camper. I rolled into Sean's house last night, and he's just like, dude, you stink. I was like, well, yeah. He told me I smelled like a Traeger grill. I was like, well, at least it masks the shit that I actually smell like, cow shit. But we've been doing that for, that's just part of the whole program. We have the Carter Ranch in the north, in Ten Sleep, where that's like where the headquarters are. But this place is basically in the Red Desert. And my dad has owned it for probably 12 years, and I've been helping him gather it. So I'm pretty familiar with the country, but still just like you forget how much it's like, how big it is and how much suffering is involved. Like just laying there with your hands numb at night. You're like, okay, tomorrow we have dawn till dusk again.
What kind of hours are we talking? What's the
daylight till the sun goes down. You're pretty much going the whole time. There's really not a lot of time to take off because you have the trucks coming. So basically we'll get them all, cows, and they have their calves with them too. So you got to gather them all. And the whole objective of it is get them all in the corral. And then, because they couldn't winter down there. The country's like, there wouldn't be enough grass, and it's just barren, gnarly country in the winter, big snow drift. So you get all the cows, and then we'll ship them up to like around Ten Sleep, and there's fields that we lease out from the farmers, and then they put them on the fields for the winter. And that's where all these cows are bred. They get bred in the summer. We put bulls out with them. So about March, they'll start having calves again. So it's like this cycle, all the calves that are coming off the cows right now that we're gathering, we'll wean them off the cows, and they're about 500 pounds. And then they're sold, and then the cows stay, and then, they're bred, and it's just a cycle. And then in the spring, we'll gather them off the fields, brand the calves, and just go turn them out on the desert. So they actually live really good lives. It's like, it's interesting with that desert grass. You'd look out there and you wouldn't think that there's a lot of feed, but for whatever reason, and maybe it's just the environment, but that grass has so much nutrients in it. It's really nutrient dense, and these calves get huge. So they actually get bigger than the ones on the ranch that in Ten Sleep, and the grass is really good there, but it's not as arid and gnarly of a country, but it's
Why do your hands get so numb?
I just holding on to that bike. I mean,
from
it's
biking, okay.
yeah, just it's not like you're on trails. You see cows out there, and you're like, okay, well, I'm just gonna go as a crow flies. You try to find a horse trail or a 2-track, but a lot of times you're just going across sagebrush and rocks. And I mean, the country can be pretty gnarly, but it's very open, and you better bring some binoculars because, I mean, the first years we gathered it, you would we didn't have binos. And it was just my dad and I. I mean, literally the first year my dad had that lease, he gathered the whole thing by himself.
Holy shit.
The whole thing by himself.
300.
The whole freaking thing by himself. Dude, my dad's a battle axe on a dirt bike. And so I started helping him next year, and I was like, this is a lot of work. And now it's really cool to have the whole family involved, my brother and his wife and my fiance and then my sister and her kids, and just like it's just like a full family affair. Everybody's working, everybody's has purpose, and yeah, man, sitting by the fire at night and just cooking on the Dutch ovens, and it's kind of what it's all about, man. Everybody's tired. You sleep good because you're legitimately beat. But
dude, it's fascinating. Watching all kinds of videos. There's all kinds of videos of you doing gathers and stuff online, and they're all fucking awesome. But one thing that I was fascinated by watching you do this is you guys have all these different sounds. When you're going by the cattle, you're fucking hissing at them and whistling and like yipping and like all kinds of what's up with all the fucking sounds?
Well, you're just trying to get them moving.
Yeah,
pay attention. Get them go.
Yeah.
Do they know the different sounds? Is there certain ones?
No.
So
I mean,
you can just make weird noises.
They know to go. I mean, you could. I heard about this. My dad was telling me about this old man that helped him when he was a kid, and he said he'd go out onto a ridge and just start doing weird, just like he's a crazy person, and these cows would look at him and just take off running, but just like all kinds of crazy noises.
Yeah.
So I think it's like whatever you prefer. But you yell all day. That's probably why I'm a little raspy. I don't smoke, but I just been yelling at cows in the dirt all day. I like to whistle, but you yell a lot. And it's to like project that sound so you don't have to go all the way over there. Because sometimes you can yell at a cow on a ridge and she'll run the right way. You can get her to run off, because she knows the program. She'll hear the motorcycles. But I mean, it's like an art to moving cows. And there's a lot of things, but like if you have a bunch of cows and the key is to pair them up with their calf. So when you first start moving a bunch of cows, if there's like 400 of them, you want to just ride through them, get them all. And like in the morning, you want to get them all stood up, because in the evening, the cow will leave her calf bedded down, and she'll go walk off and eat all night. And so in the morning, when you go to move them, if you just came in there and just started moving everything, you're going to get them all, you're going to fight them the whole way, because they all want to run back to where they last saw their mom or their baby. So you can get them all the way, move them 10 miles. And if they don't pair up, if you don't hold them, and it's a pain in the ass, and they won't walk as good either, but you'll be starting right back at the beginning. So you want to go in easy, get them all stood up, and then the babies will get up and they'll suck their mom, get some breakfast, and then they'll be paired up, and then you can line them out and they'll walk. And then, you can walk a cow. I bet we've walked cows. The farthest I ever gone with a bunch of yearlings is like 20 miles in a day, and they trotted. But that's without a calf. And, you go 12, 15 miles. That's a long ways, but you can do it if they're paired up and they want to walk. And then if they're thirsty, that helps. If they know there's water where you're going and they haven't had a drink, they'll get 1 drink a day, a cow. And so if they're thirsty, they'll walk to that water. You just get them lined out. But that makes it easier. But then you get the days from hell, the cattle battles where they don't want to go and it's hot. Cows don't like to walk when it's hot. So you start at daylight. Like first light, you're on these things, and you'll get half your day done, 3/4 of your day done before 9 o'clock. And then they won't walk as well when it's hot. But I know it's a lot of fucking information.
No,
dude.
I
know a lot about
Great
cows.
information. I've
Another
never heard any of it.
For the record, we're gonna talk about your snowboard career, 100%. But I don't give a shit about that right now. I want to know another thing too about what you do, because you're like, okay, he's a rancher, he herds cattle, great, like you ride around on a dirt bike. But when you get them all in the corral, it's fucking dangerous, right?
Oh man, yeah. Like it's they're big animals, and not that all of them are mean, and they don't mean it. There's a lot, like most of the cows are pretty nice temperament, or we wouldn't have them around. But you will get some crazy cows. And these things, and I can see a crazy cow. They'll have a high head and they'll look at you, and you'll see her from a mile away. She'll just look at you, and they're wild. They're like a wild animal. It's like an elk. She'll just run. And especially on a motorcycle, you're vulnerable. Like, you just got to get out of the way. I had one take after me yesterday and lost my coffee cup. I wasn't really paying attention. She wanted it. A lot of times they'll bluff, but
Like they're gonna maul you, basically, kind of thing.
yeah, she'll hit you and get you down. I mean, they won't hurt you.
Yeah.
And that, 1,500-pound animal that hurts. And you'll kick you. Like, most cows will kick you, and calves will kick you. So when you're behind them, you have like a sorting stick where you can kind of, that's your buffer zone. I like my stick to be like the length of their legs, so I'm not getting kicked. You can kind of turn them. It's your defense. You're so outnumbered in there, but you're eye level with them. And when you get into a corral or an alley and you're starting to sort these things, because it's not like you just put them in a big corral and put them on trucks, man. There's so much legwork. I think I did when we just cutting the calves off. We have portable panels we'll put out in the desert to get them all in. Get 800 head of cattle in there. Well, those are cows plus 500 of them have calves. So there's a lot of animals, and so you got to split the cows from the calves, and then you'll have your neighbor's strays in there. You want to cut them off, and so you just want to make sure you have your cows, and you're cutting your bulls off because you're going to ship them different. They're not going to go with the cows. So there's a lot of sorting, and it's all on foot. And I mean, you're like, I bet I put on like 7 miles in the corral just running back and forth cutting cows the other day. And then getting them on trucks, because you can't put them all at once. They go in sections. Like a semi can hold like 43 cattle, 45 cattle, somewhere in there, depending on their weight. So you're putting like 6 on, and then 9 on, and then 8 on. So you have to count, and then you have to like make sure they all don't go on and smash. And so you're like sorting and cutting, and it's a whole process. But you're in there, and these things, I've had so many close calls. Like I say about snowboarding is dangerous, but ranching has always been more dangerous than snowboarding for me. I've been injured way more times on the ranch, from all the moving parts, equipment, and to animals and horses, and it just kind of prepared me for my snowboarding career more than anything. Learning how to wreck early on horses, getting bucked off on my head, and then just like really, there was never quit. It wasn't like, oh, you got bucked off and you're 20 miles from the truck. What are you going to do? Well, you got to get back on that fucking horse. There's no like, we're done for the day. My feelings are hurt. And like, no. Yeah. My dad was gnarly. He's like, get on that son of a bitch. Get a hold of him. Man, you're crying. Your shirt's ripped. And it just taught me to, you can just do anything as long as you just kind of try, All you got to do is try. I mean,
I'm curious too. You grew up in a population of 260 people, 10 Sleep, Wyoming.
Yes, sir.
What effect did it have growing up in a small town like that?
Oh man, I think, well, you were accountable. It's like you couldn't get away with anything. Everybody knew your business. If you, from like the teachers, if you went out on the weekend, and I was a pretty wild kid. I think I got my first MIP. It was a different world. Like, we were governed differently. We had a town marshal that just watched over us rather than try to get us. Like he really truly cared. This guy was our football coach, and so there wasn't like, I wouldn't say there wasn't a respect for the law, but we got away with a lot more shit than like say the city kids, because Bill would pull us over on a weekend and he'd know what we were up to, but he was just looking out for our safety. There wasn't a ticket issued. He's like, hey, if you guys ever need me, he would like give us hard time, but we knew he was there for us. And, if you got in trouble, the only time we ever got in trouble is when we went to the other towns. We're like, oh, we can do this. And then we'd get arrested. And then, we'd show up at school and the teachers knew, everybody knew. And so they'd try to hold you accountable too. So in a small town, man, like, you're held accountable. Everybody knows your business, and that's a good thing, I think. I mean, it's a good thing and a bad thing, because I don't think that everybody needs to know your business, which is kind of the state of the world we live in these days. But I think a person needs to be held accountable if you mess up. But I think you need to be, if you're willing to take responsibility and admit you're wrong, you should be forgiven. I think there's redemption in everything, and I don't know if that's necessarily the state of our world anymore. I think that it's kind of crazy.
I love that perspective because you have like, you're a small town, you're a small town dude, but you've got a global perspective. You've traveled around, you've snowboarded, and then, gone back to that. And that's probably not in alignment with a lot of people from where you're from. And that's something that I think is super fascinating. Like, would you say when you go travel and you do these, you go see the whole, it's a big world out there, and you go back to this tiny town, do you bring back some of those stories or anything like that? And
I love to talk about the world. I think, I love traveling and seeing other cultures, and it's the people I love to meet. It's of course the mountains and all that adds to the experience, but meeting people and hearing their stories and just those human connections are most important to me. Because I really think it's given me a perspective to stand back and be able to put myself in other people's shoes. And I'm like, man, maybe you might not have the same opinion as I do, but let me see why you think that way. I'm always really curious. So like, that you're really passionate about that thought. So why do you think that way? And I don't think you can change people's minds. I'm never like trying to, I think it's a turnoff when people try to like push their beliefs or whatever on you, their opinion. I think it's just more of like, hey man, let's have a talk. Let's chat about it. And this is my perspective, and this is why. What's your perspective? That's awesome. Like, and then maybe you guys can come to a common ground, because we're all human, man. Like, we all like have the same goal to survive and thrive, And I think that we have more in common than not. And
Absolutely.
I think that the I don't know, you just hear more about like the division and everybody's so different. And I'm like, we're not. We're like fucking humans, dude. Like, we're all the same. It's just like we might have different opinions, and that's from your walks of life, but you have to respect people's opinions, because that is truly like their life experience and what they've lived. So I don't know. I just like to come into it and put myself in other people's shoes. And I think traveling globally has really given me that perspective of just being really open to other people's opinions. And I think it's really important, man. It's like help me grow, Well,
right along with those, what we're talking about there, I think there's a misconception too. And we were talking about it before we started recording, but with food, whether you're talking about vegetarian versus being a meat eater, whether you're, and it's actually kind of interesting because it's like you basically herd cattle, you're a rancher, you're around cows all the time, and it seems like you almost align more with like a vegetarian in your morals in a lot of the ways, and caring about what goes into your body. And I think there's just a lot of misconceptions, and you have a great perspective on knowing where your food comes from and some of the bad shit that's going on with the glyphosate that's in fucking everything and all that. So I don't know, there's a lot there, but I'd love to hear you kind of unpack some of that stuff.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of layers, and I think starting with that is just, you can't put people in a box. It's not black or white. It's like, there's so many layers to everything. And when you start talking about nutrition and immunity and all these things, it's like, it's not cut and dry, but like our food system is really messed up in a way that, it's expensive. Like, so if you're living in the city, it's super expensive to eat healthy, so-called healthy or whatever, and if you don't have that kind of income, then of course your first option is to go to McDonald's and eat this dog shit. And then you wonder why you feel bad, and you wonder why like you get sick. It's like, man, it starts at the root of everything is your like nutrition. And to just kind of like dig into that with like, what I really know about it is in the meat industry, in the food industry, is like, man, I've never met a rancher that didn't love his cattle and didn't love his sheep or whatever it may be, because meat's really demonized in a way of like, there are bad practices, but there's bad practices in everything. Like, that's just human nature. You got to like dissect that. And if a rancher doesn't take care of his animals, he doesn't do well. Like if the land isn't doing well, his animals aren't doing well, he's not doing well. So they really are stewards of the land in a way that they have to manage the grasses, they have to manage their animals. And I understand like the big farming corporate shit, like the big feedlots and stuff, like that's bad. Like dairy, like there's some gnarly dairy farms and like those animals and veal and all that shit. I'm not down with that, but there are some beautiful farms that do it right. And, you know, I think when the agriculture industry is such a, it's a really tricky thing because it's on such small margins now because like ranchers and farmers are starving. Like they, you know, calf prices are in the shitter. And these people are just trying to hold on to their ranches and survive with their families. And that's all they know. Like people are like, oh, you could just change. You can't change. Like this is what you do. This is what you've always done. So how do you expect somebody to like survive? And I think that's how they get into these maybe not as good practices, like especially with farming, you know, like tons of nitrogen fertilizer. I mean, you need some fertilizer in some lands, but if you truly have healthy soil, you're probably not going to get the yield that these big commercial farms are getting, but your ground's healthy. That means your animals are healthy. That means the people that are eating your animals are healthy. And that is all like a cycle, but there's not a lot of money in it. That's the problem because, you know, the guys pulling the strings, they don't care, man. It's about numbers. And the people calling the shots, it's about numbers. It's like, it's corrupt, man.
Can you explain how exactly the Roundup and the glyphosate and damages the soil and what that effect has on just a little bit more of an elaborate level so people understand?
Yeah, so like glyphosate, so they come out with Roundup Ready products. So like for the rancher, it would be a Roundup Ready crop. It's called Roundup is like it's a pesticide or a fucking weed killer. So basically 30 years ago, Roundup Ready came out. So these crops were genetically engineered to be resilient to this spray. So you could grow your crops and spray them and your crop would live. It would kill all the weeds. But that shit has glyphosate in it, man. And glyphosate has been linked back to the gnarly, you know, cancer and like all these problems that we're having with all of our health and all this shit, but you don't really hear about it a lot. There's a Dr. Zach Bush who talks about it a lot. And if anybody wants to know like what's up with glyphosate and microbiome and that stuff, I'm no scientist, man. I just like kind of repeat what I've heard and what I've seen a little bit, but Zach Bush, he's a genius when it comes to that. And he really breaks it down. So when you're just eating chemicals in this shit, I mean, it's like, duh, everybody's sick and getting cancer. Like this is not normal, man. And
because you're getting fucking Roundup basically on top of your food.
Yeah, glyphosate's so gnarly, man. It's so gnarly that I heard about. There was a hospital in Texas, and so it was kind of like a hospice house. So that's where you went to pass away, and they had a huge rose garden. And
I heard this. I listened to the same exact podcast. I know where you're going.
You know what I'm saying? Good. And they were spraying it with, it with glyphosate. So whatever product had glyphosate. So basically they linked this shit back. They were like giving these people roses. You're smelling the roses. You're inhaling glyphosate. And they're like, well, we're actually like, we're poisoning people with these fucking roses. So it's like, I don't know, man. I've always been one to ask questions, and I just see so many holes in the game. I'm like, wait, and you tell me I can't ask questions? I'm like, well, you're lying to me. Like, that's all I can ever, until you can answer my questions and like be honest with me, then I'm going to be skeptical of whatever you're saying. Like it could be like fucking sky's orange. I don't care. I need to see it with my own eyes, and I need to like dig into that. But,
and then going back to what you're talking about too, your point you made earlier about how it seeps into the soil, and then the animals eat the soil, and you eat the animals, right? So there's this like long, kind of effect that keeps happening.
All the microbes in the soil, and like the top 2 inches of the soil, right? That's your health of your soil. And you just see, I see a lot of these commercial farms, and vegetarian or not, like a lot of people will just like be like, well, vegetarian's better. Well, I'm like, okay, well, let's dig into this. Okay, so how is your vegetables, how are they farmed? So if you're doing these practices, you're tilling the soil and killing all the microbes and then spraying it and then growing crops that look beautiful. Well, necessarily, I don't know if you should do a little more research into that, because that's really bad. Your soil's healthy, and that's why they got to put like tons of fertilizer on the soil. So it basically just comes to like, I call it like mining. It's like monocropping, and you're pouring a ton of fertilizer and shit onto it to make it grow, when really it should just be healthy soil and it should grow. And probably not going to get the yield, but that's why it's all about money and like yields and like
volume.
Volume, man. Yeah. But you know, to like talk about like vegetarian to meat, and I'm like, okay, so if you're a vegetarian or a vegan or whatever, that's great, man. And I think everybody's body is different, and whatever makes you feel good, you should totally do. But to say, and regardless of like how your approach to whatever it is, if you're on the stance that like killing animals is bad to eat, I'm like, okay, well, if you've ever seen commercial farming and you've ever seen a swather go through a field, there's a reason the buzzards are flying, because they're chopping up every little Bambi and every little critter in that field. So, and how many people is that feeding? You know, a loaf of bread, and how many animals died into that loaf of bread? But, you know, one cow will feed a family for a year. So I'm like, one animal, like, if you don't be a hypocrite, it's like one mouse is less, his life is worth less than a cow just because it's smaller, or a little deer. So, I mean, I hate hypocrisy. You know, I'm kind of like, let's just call it what it is. And I think you should do what's best for you and your body and what makes you feel good. But do research into where your food's coming from. Because if I'm hunting, I know where my elk's coming from. That food makes me feel amazing. And I grow my crops. That makes me feel amazing. But obviously not everybody has access to that. Mm-hmm. So, you know, like we talked about earlier, how do you like navigate this crazy food system or whatever? I'm like, man, go to your local farmer market. That's your best bet. Like all this organic stuff, like, yeah, maybe it's better than like McDonald's, but you know, the reason it's organic is because there's, you can make more on it, and it's just sprayed with the whatever government approved pesticides.
When I walk in the grocery store, there's that chicken that's like $3, and then there's that chicken that's like $10. Is there a big difference?
Probably within the meat, I would say, but still, it's like, man, there's so much smoke and mirrors. It's like just learning processing our own cows in that world. I learned that, you know, like a grass-fed beef. Well, you know, people are going in there with intention. They're buying these beef that live on the range their whole lives. Well, no, they were in a feedlot, and then they finished them on grass for 40 days. Now it's grass-fed beef because you can make fucking money on it.
Oh, that's how some of these companies do it.
That's what I was wondering.
And I'm not saying everybody does that, but that's the shit you got to navigate, that nobody's going to dig into that unless you know. It's like,
unless you know your farmer. People
are just lying to you. You know, people are just lying to make money. And you see it on every level. They're just lying to you to make money. And it's like, I have a hard time with that, you know, especially when it comes to people's health and like their nutrition. And it's like, man, I really truly believe that everybody deserves to have access to whole healthy food. I think that's just a fucking atrocity that you have to be wealthy to afford food. Yeah. And you don't necessarily have to be, because you can grow your own, which is the best bet. But like, who can do that? Like, you live in the city, like, grow your own garden. Neat story, dude. Like,
yeah, you can grow some tomatoes and some.
Yeah, you're not
you gotta have a salsa.
You're not
some
salsa
salsa.
Yeah, you're not gonna feed your family, you know. So, but nobody's talking about the food system, and it's just there's these. It's just they're lying to you.
So what's Roundup in everything or what?
I wouldn't say everything, but a lot, man. Like like I say, I'm no scientist. The shit I've read up on it, it's bad. It's bad.
So the podcast host he was talking about, basically his way of thinking, which, you know, take everything with a grain of salt. You know, I take everything with a grain of salt. You're here because everybody's got an agenda, right? I'll watch a vegan documentary and be like, I need to be fucking vegan tomorrow. And then I'll watch a meat eating documentary. And I'm just saying, and I eat meat, but I'm just saying I take it all with a grain of salt. So take this with a grain of salt. But, you know, he was essentially saying if we stay on the rate that we're at, with the amount of pesticides that we're ingesting as a society, 1 in 3 humans are going to have autism, and then the cancer rates are going to be through the roof, and we're essentially in 60 years not going to be a functioning society because of our food.
I've seen the cancer go through the roof. When I was a kid, I never heard about people getting
and
cancer.
Fertility, man. Yeah, fertility is gnarly. Exactly. Like the sperm counts are so down in our generation, in the next generation compared to like the older generations. Like fertility is just like scary, man. It's like we're on a path to like extinct ourselves. And there's a lot of things you hear about, but like, I mean, there could be a red button push tomorrow. We're all gone. But like,
there's a lot of different directions that we're headed that way.
But and that's all dark shit, but I'm very optimistic because people are smart. And I think people just need to like, man, just be a critical thinker. Think for yourself. Don't listen to what everybody else is saying. Cause I've learned that like, that's probably your best bet. Listen to your intuition. Cause if I was like, for instance, if I'm just in the mountains listening to what everybody says, if I'd have listened to everybody with the direction of my snowboard career, I wouldn't be a pro snowboarder. But I just like didn't. I just like, nah, I'm just gonna do this. This is what feels right to me. This is what my intuition tells me. And wow, lo and behold, fuck man, all those people that said I was done in 2 years, I'm still here, dude. Like my career is great. I do exactly what I want. I don't answer to people. I don't listen to the critics. You know, when people are so critical of you, I'm like, well, just like worry about yourself. Like, you know, like usually that's a projection of their own insecurities and the things that they're not happy with themselves about. And I think once I really just brushed all that shit aside and was like, man, this is what I'm doing, it all kind of comes together, you know. And I think more people need to ask questions and just fucking listen to your intuition because people lie. It's human nature. Track the money, man. If you want to know what's going on, just like follow the money. And that's usually like the best way to find out if somebody's being authentic or in anything. Follow the money. Who's getting paid? Okay, cool. You know?
No, it's especially, and I love what you said earlier about forming your own opinion, right? Because that's something that is tricky. There's a lot of information about a lot of things, be it diet, politics, doesn't fucking matter. All these things. It's a tricky space to navigate, right? And I think that we oftentimes what we do is like, you know, if you're in your environment, you end up just absorbing what your friends say, right? So you just become it's not really your own opinion. Like for me, I've used this example before, but I listen to a lot of sports podcasts or a lot of sports,
a lot of moto
podcasts, but I'll take their opinion or take on something, and I'll take that back and I'll bring it and I'll regurgitate it to my friends as if it's my own opinion. That's not my own opinion. That's literally that. Like, so we think we've come up with our own opinions, but really it's just all this bullshit that's put. And so you have to take time, dwell, you know, be with yourself to actually, you know, have some introspection on things and see things, you know, the way they are, whatever.
I mean, 100%. And I think, you know, where I really find that is just in being by myself and in nature, out doing something, whether I'm out behind a bunch of cows all day chasing. I mean, you have a lot of time to think. And I love thinking. And I think that's where I find myself most creative is when I'm bored. And I look at like creativity is dwindling. And I really account that a lot to there's no boredom. Like people can't be bored. Like you have all these fucking devices and all this stuff. I can't be bored. I mean, dude, I remember sitting there so bored, waiting for cows, sit with my dad. He'd be like, oh, sit here and wait for these cows to mother. I'd be like 5 hours just sitting there. There's a rock, there's a stick. Get creative, bud. And you just figure it out, you know, or like sitting at a meal with adults and just shutting up and just listening, and you'd be so bored. But that just like nurtured that imagination and that creativity. But now it's like stimulation. Our brains cannot handle that. Like when I'm on Instagram, like, dude, my brain's overloaded. I haven't looked at my phone for like 7 days, and I come back and I'm clear and I can think. And I think finding clarity within all of that. And then I look at my phone and I'm like, how's that make me feel? I was like, that makes me feel like shit. Like, why do I care about what everybody else is doing? I don't really care because I am like trying to like better myself. And if I'm worried about what everybody else is doing, it's like, how are you going to do anything for yourself? And it's just like this, you know, like, oh, I'm missing out here. I was like, first off, all that's bullshit. Nobody's putting their best. Fuck, it's like a video part, dude. Oh, you didn't wreck all year? Fuck,
mask. Yeah.
Neat story, dude. Like, I'm not Travis Rice. He doesn't wreck, but you know.
Well, going back to what you just said, though, I love that because it's like take a gauge on how shit makes you feel. I've been getting better at that as I've gotten older too. Where you're like, I have a cabin, right, and we've talked about it on the show a little bit. But I go there. There's no cell phone service. Go there for a weekend, and as I'm like driving back, I'm like, everything is just like my whole like tempo is like it's just calmer. And then you get in the city, the fucking phone, I call it the mobile stress device.
Yes.
The mobile stress device is buzzing, everybody's hitting you up, and you're like, but you have to kind of be conscious of like the mobile stress device and then being with the land. And I'm curious about being with the land. Now, this might be a little fucking crunchy, a little bit woo-woo, but like, what's your take on kind of like being in sync with the land, with the earth, with the frequencies and all that stuff? What's your take on all that stuff?
I mean, dude, if I've never met a cowboy that didn't believe in God, because the great creator or whatever you might call him, because he's out there, he sees the beauty within this land. He spends all of his time out there, and you feel that vibration, and I think it makes you humble, because you are not a god. You are a mere mortal on this planet, and you should be able, like, mortals should not be able to tell other humans what to do. Like, we answer to one person, in my opinion, just from what I've experienced. And I think why things are so messy is because you aren't taking your shoes off and putting your feet in the dirt. You aren't grounding yourself. You're standing on cement. You're in these metal boxes. We're doing all this shit with these fucking Wi-Fi signals and all this shit that's just like totally, I think it's totally just disturbing what we're supposed to be. Because when I'm out hunting with my bow, like I did in September, man, I chased elk for 20 plus days in the high country by myself, just like camping under the stars, sitting with my thoughts, waiting, hunting. And I mean, when you connect at that like primitive level, that primal level, it's like, I can't explain it, but you just feel so intact and everything seems to be right. Everything seems to be okay. You're not stressed. You're just in full sync with everything that's the most natural thing on this planet, and I think we've lost that. Not everybody, because you talk to people that, understand that, but there's people that they've never done that, and it's not for everybody. But you can go outside and you can look at the sky, you can take your shoes off and you can put your feet in the dirt and you can ground yourself. And I think that's most important for me in recharging and just like having the perspective that I have and being able to just like navigate all this anxiety of this world, and I think, I don't know, more people need to just go outside, look up. And I mean, fuck, you go in the city and like last night, I'm like, where are the stars? I've been under the stars for like a week looking up. I go out, take a piss at night. I'm like, oh man, look at all the stars. You come to the city, I was like, oh, the stars are gone because we're scared of the darkness. Mm-hmm. What are you scared of the dark? What are you scared for, man? Like, fuck, knock your street lights out. I hate street lights. Yeah. I was like, why do we have lights on everything? And I get it maybe for security, but I don't know, man.
Dude, couple things as you're talking.
Dangerous cities that need
dangerous cities for sure.
Yeah,
that's why I don't live in the city, man. I was like,
it's nice you don't have to worry about shit getting stolen out of your truck like we do in the city and all.
I
that.
know,
but there's a couple different things that I wanted to kind of add to what you're saying there, because it's it's interesting as humans. I'm gonna get fucking deep, but who gives a shit? As humans, we think that we're big important people, and I have my desk and my computer, and I'm doing my big important job and typing my big important emails and doing all my important human things that are like I need to do to be a part of society. But like, we're fucking animals. We're animals, and like that's what the difference is when you go out and you spend a lot of time out in nature. You kind of realize I'm like you're with the cattle or whatever. I've had some experiences that are similar where I'm like, I'm a fucking animal. And it's another interesting parallel I was also thinking about. I heard a statistic that the rate at which people walk across the street on a crosswalk directly correlates to the population. So the bigger, the more dense the population of the city, the faster the people walk across the crosswalk. It's been recorded, which means the faster pace of life, which means like in my opinion, the more stress, the more, and then there's a reason why you go to a small cowboy town. And like for me, Huntsville, this town in Utah, kind of where I spend some time, as soon as you get in there, everything slows down. And it's like there is that pace and you don't even realize how fucking stressed out you are when you're living in a city till you actually get and spend some time in a slower pace.
Yeah. Well, the cities just continue to keep you distracted from like actually, your stress or whatever. You're like, I can go to the bar, I can go hang out with people, I can go eat food, I can do this. But like intensely, there's like a place you might be able to go out and eat, but you're kind of self-sufficient. So it's just like, what are you in a hurry to do? Like I mean, even when I'm working hard, like there's always a hurry to get the job done. But I'm like, when I'm done, like, well, there's nothing I'd rather be doing than this. So it's like, okay, let's just sit with it. You know, I just refuse. I want to live, man. I refuse to exist. I'm not going to fucking exist in this world. I'm going to like live. And that just goes back to like so many things going on. I'm not going to live in fear. Like I won't. Like I've lived in dangerous life my whole life, and I'm not going to just like be scared of everything, come to the city and be scared. I'm like, I'm aware there's dangers. I'm prepared for dangers, but that doesn't like, you know, it doesn't direct my life, you know? So I'm just like, whatever. We're all going to die. You know, why are we so afraid of dying? You know, that was always like the interesting thing to me. I was like, if you believe in something after death, there's no fear of dying, you know? And it's like, for me to exist is worse than dying. Just to be here as a freaking unimportant person that brings nothing to society. It's like, well, what the fuck are you doing here, dude? Like, it's just, I don't know, man. Live, go out and live, do dangerous things. It's fine. Like,
Well, it seems like you found your these two passions of yours with the ranching and snowboarding, and it's so awesome because it's like you're such a rare fucking combination of human that's just carved your own lane. And I think we should maybe kind of pivot into your snowboard career a little bit because, you know, where you grew up, there's no fucking snowboarding and stuff, right? Like it's not. Oh, well. So yeah, how did a ranch kid get into snowboarding is what I'm curious
Well,
about.
we'll start at the very beginning because we have so much time. Well, I mean, my love for snow has always kind of been there. And I remember as a really little kid, my dad would pull us behind the truck when he'd go check cows on sleds. And for whatever reason, man, like I just could not get enough of that, and he wouldn't do it enough for me. I just always wanted to be pulled behind, and there would be like 2 inches of snow, and you'd be hitting sagebrush and rocks and shit, but it was like everything for me. And then when the fields would freeze, the cow turds are super hard, and he'd pull us around on his horse. He'd just dally off with his rope and pulls through the field or whatever. And then Metal Arc, it's a small resort about 15 miles above Tensleep, and it was just a pommel lift, probably 600 feet. It was pretty steep, 600 feet. And on Fridays, the school bus would take the kids up. It was like $3 for a lift ticket and like skis, so you could afford it as a poor ranch kid. Like we grew up with no money, so like there wasn't access to any of this. So the school bus would take us up on a half day of Friday. First off, that was awesome because I hated school and I got to miss a half day of school. And then so we started skiing. And so I did like 2 years of skiing. But there was this OG dude, his name's Charlie Hicks. And I'll never forget like the first time I saw this guy on a snowboard ripping down the mountain, and he had this big husky dog following him. And I was just like, that guy is having way more fun than everyone else. I'm like, what is he doing? And so I immediately went home. I was like, Mom, I was like, that's a snowboard. I want a snowboard. You know, that's what I want to do. And my mom's like, no, you're not snowboarding, you're skiing. So I think I put in another winter. I think I skied total of like maybe 2 or 3 winters. And then so I was like 8 years old. She finally got us these black snow mogul monsters with no edges. And these things were just dangerous. Like you couldn't control them, but I remember going up.
Yeah, I had a black snow.
Yeah, black
They
snow.
weren't real
Yeah.
snowboards.
No, it was like a
No
plastic. I don't even know what it was. It was dangerous, but
Walmart.
you could strap your feet to it and you could slide every direction. And we went up behind the ranch just on a snowy hill, and I'll never forget dropping in and just ripping that, and well, not ripping it, just face planting and trying to slide down this hill. Well, then my sister she took it up to the resort. She was brave enough. She went up to the resort, and I mean, she probably struggled on that thing. I remember we were skiing. I'd watch her, and I was like, maybe I should bring my board, but just wasn't really conducive. And then the next year, my mom finally got us, and we begged, and she got my brother, my sister, and I all Burton Airs. Like Burton Airs with the flex, the bone out strap, the 3 straps. Mm-hmm. And then Charlie was straight up. We were the first snowboarders in the mountain. There was a couple other kids, and he took us under his wing and just taught us how to snowboard. I'll never forget him taking me up by himself and just like showing me how to turn. And that was it for me. And so Charlie Hicks,
Let's give him a little air horn.
Charlie Hicks, man. OG. Doesn't even know any pro snowboarders, doesn't know the scene. Nobody knows who Charlie is, but he's still ripping. I still go ride with him in Tensleep at Metal Arc. He's the man. He's probably, he's in his 60s. Super stoker. But he was my inspiration for getting into snowboarding at a young age. But you had to learn how to 1 foot up the mountain on a pommel lift before you could even strap in. So it's like, and the high schoolers like running the pommel lift, which straight up, had the spring in the pommel lift, so it like stretch out, and they just like stand on the tail of your board, and then it would just stretch out and just launch you in front of everybody, and you just eat shit until you learn how to kind of like 1 foot stomp it.
Wow.
And that was like my introduction to snowboarding, and then I was just in love with it, man. It just, for whatever reason, sliding down the mountain, it just changed my life forever, and that was all I wanted to do. But it was this path of love-hate, because they were divorced. So my mother lived in Casper, Wyoming, which there was actually kind of a little snowboard scene. And so I bounced, man, since I was in 3rd grade, I just started bouncing back and forth between there and Tent Sleep. Every year I'd move like 2 or 3 times. I just like realized that this year I was like, fuck, I've been moving like literally every year since I was in 2nd grade. Tired. But I learned to skate, and I had that crew there, but then I'd come back to Tent Sleep, and I'd snowboard a little bit, but like the last 3 years in high school, the resort closed. So, and I got into football because it was kind of my outlet. And I'm kind of a physical person. I really enjoyed the like contact. And, so I was playing football, and I just totally lost snowboarding. And I remember going to Hood in like 7th, 8th grade, and like meeting Lance Pittman and Rob Kingwell, those guys from Jackson. I didn't even know Jackson existed. Like all I knew was like Hogadon and Casper, and like Metal Arc and Tent Sleep. So I had no like really perception of what was going on in the snowboarding world. But I remember I went, and I was good at football. I actually got a scholarship to play college football in Black Hill State. It wasn't
What position?
Middle linebacker and fullback. So like I'm like,
LB.
I was like, I'm not a tall guy, but when I was in high school, I think when I was a senior, I was like 205 pounds. I'm like 160 now.
Holy, yeah, this is a beefcake.
Yeah, I was a plug. I was a plug.
205 pounds?
Yeah.
Damn.
Yeah, I lifted a lot of weights, and
okay.
I was just like,
You were huge.
I'll fucking, I had no neck. And I loved football. I loved the game, and I wasn't really a team sport guy. I hated like team sport. I was like, because I was still skater and snowboarder at heart, but I had no other outlet for like my energy, because I couldn't skate in Tent Sleep. There was no cement, and I couldn't snowboard because the resort was closed. So I just had to find this other outlet, and I found football. I chased that, and then I'll never forget, man. Like I got a scholarship. I showed up at fucking fall football camp, and I got run over by a guy who was like 250 pounds, and I'm just like, what am I doing? I was like, what am I think I'm doing here? I was like, this is bullshit. This is not me. So I kind of milked it, and just like my heart was just not in it. But it was in South Dakota, Black Hill State, and it was by this little resort called Terry Peak. And I had all this old snowboard gear, like these Airwalk half pipe. Remember the Airwalk low top? I won them at Mount Hood on like a snowboard contest. And I had this old Joyride and the fucking Ride baseless bindings. And I had this old setup, and I was like, man, I want to go snowboarding up at Terry Peak. So I got a season pass. It was like $200. And I remember going up there in like end of November, and there was this, and I was like, what have I been doing? Like, I had this whole epiphany. I was like, dude, I got to like switch my life. I got to go snowboarding, man. Like, what am I doing? And so I just fully flipped it, went home, saw my dad, and I was like, man, I'm going to drop out of college. And they were all surprised that I went to college anyways. They're like, I hated school, man. Anytime I got a chance to ditch school, I was ditching school. So I spent a year just on the ranch trying to earn enough money to take a winter off. And I just cowboyed with my dad. My brother was in college, so it was just dad and I, and we went hard, man. And he had a bunch of cows spread all over the place. So I was 19, cowboyed for a year with the idea of just like leaving that winter and just snowboarding and seeing. And that was where the next winter, my friend Russell had moved to Bozeman. And I thought about like going to Whistler, because I was like looking at magazines. And that was when Travis was like blowing up, like maybe this was, maybe it was a little before that. But I'd seen these magazines like, oh, Whistler seems sick. And then I like went up to Canada. I was like, dude, good luck. Like, I'm so far from home. I was like, I don't know if I can do this. But then Bozeman was accessible. And then my dad's roots in Bridger Valley, in like Bridger Canyon, and my grandpa homesteaded there. So I was like, that kind of drew me there. And so I spent that winter just shredding. And dude, I showed up, I had like a 1993 Joyride, my old setup, and I was just like trying to snowboard. I was such a kook. You know, I had
flower on
all it had the guy in the straight jacket on the bottom.
Sick.
Like he had like the straight jacket with the crazy people in the corner. I still have the board. It's sick. Green top sheet. And I was like, I'm a kook. Whoa, this is okay. So I went to World Boards and bought myself some boots. Well, I was able to afford boots first because my boots were just jacked. Then I think I got a board. Then I got some Drake bindings. I bought an option Sansalone, which I was like, holy cow, man, the boards have changed so much. And then so I was ripping, and I was just like, I was kind of on the periphery, you know. I was like watching all these riders up there, like the world board guides, like this dude, Josh Fisher. Do you guys know Josh Fisher?
Yeah, let's give him an air horn.
Josh Fisher, yeah.
Yeah,
and awesome. He was like, I was like, he was so nice, you know. And I remember here watching him rip, and I can't remember all the other guys, but he stood out because he was really nice to me. And I that was where it all just kind of started happening. And I was working in the summer. I go back to Tent Sleep and just work on the ranch. Or maybe, no, shit, I went to culinary school one of those summers. I was like, I'm going to be a chef. Went to culinary school. I was like, fuck, man, this is a lot of work. I got to work 18-hour days, and I'm just covered in shit. And yeah, so I was over that. But I spent 2 winters there. And then my friends, Dan Forsberg and this kid, Justin Agna, came up. And they'd been in Jackson building out the snowboard park with JP Martin and Ranyan Dearj. Like, they were building like the snowboard park, and they had this crazy park, and they're like, man, come down like next winter, we'll give you a job. I was like, okay. So when I left Bozeman, I ended up that spring just spending like a week in Jackson. Never even been to Jackson. Mm-hmm. And I was like, holy shit, this mountain's sick. Like, what have I been doing? I don't have to leave Wyoming. I can shred. And so like, that was where I really, that was the big chance for me. I moved to Jackson that next fall and worked on the park and pipe crew, you know, and that was like, I got to ride every day. We worked, and I was like, this is way easier than like working at Mackenzie River Pizza doing dough and like getting all gross. And I was like, this is where I knew the minute I got to Jackson, I was like, this is home for me. You know, I'm in Wyoming, you know, and I mean, that's like the short evolution of like getting to Jackson. And, I mean, I thank Dan and Justin and all those guys for giving me a chance, you know.
Let's give him an air horn.
I got a first Patreon question for you.
Yeah.
You mentioned, how do you pronounce it? Hogadon?
Hogadon.
This is from Xander. How did the hand-dug pipe at Hogadon shape your snowboarding career?
I forgot all about the Xander. I bet that's Alex Crump. I mean, I remember, we hand-dug a dirty half-pipe at Hogadon. Like, literally, like, they plowed all the snow off the parking lot, and it was just dirt, and we'd go up there after school and like shave the pipe, and it had 2 hits. It was like super shitty. Enough speed for like 1 good hit.
You made your own half pipe.
Yeah.
Sick.
Yeah, hand dug. And in the first half pipe I ever rode, I was on Casper Mountain Racers in 7th grade. When I was in Casper, it was a ski team, but they allowed snowboarders, but they'd make us race too. There wasn't slope style or half pipe yet, and they'd make me race. I freaking hated racing. I just I had a Joyride with the cat in the hat on the bottom, big stance and denim pants. This is like 93.
Big jean fantasies
dude,
time.
Just killing it. And
big pants.
But I remember like all the kids on the team had they'd had their like freestyle board, and then they had their hammer or hot board with the racer boots, and I was like, and I beat them, you know.
I hope those big pants never come back, huh?
You're kind of cool.
Yeah, I like them. I like them.
Giant ones.
Oh yeah,
huge ones.
Oh
the purple blind jeans. I mean, those are hot. Those are hot.
Tight.
And the fucked.
Fucked.
That dates you guys.
You would wear that?
Kid? I think those are back in now.
Right now, they're back in.
I heard they're back in.
Better than some hella skinnies.
It's funny because I will see kids
right in between.
Yeah, you see kids. I'm like, shit, dude, you look like you're from '93. It's like that was cool when I was in middle school.
Yeah,
like, what are you doing?
We had Richards on though. He was saying the same thing. He's like, I lived through that phase. Don't do that again.
Back.
You don't need to go back.
They're just not that functional.
Yeah, true.
Well, it's like, why did we have big jeans and just little wheels? You got stuck on every freaking piece of gravel and just airmail.
The smallest skate wheels possible.
Shit, dude.
So I'm curious about with your snowboard career, because you're known as a backcountry snowboarder, all that stuff. And did you grow up in your formative years like riding a ton of park when you worked at the Jackson Park crew?
Yeah, I mean that's where I honed all my like tricks. because Jackson actually had like a gnarly park. We had like freaking 100-foot channel gap when I was there.
Holy shit.
It was scary.
In
But
their normal public park.
yes, we had like this gnarly, like
100-footer. Let's go.
we had a 50-foot table and a 70-foot, but there was a channel and you could gap it. I never did it. I watched people could just get broke doing it though.
T. Ricky come through and bust that thing? Or
Tom
what?
broke off.
I don't know if T. Ricky ever did it. I watched some super loosey-gooseys hit it though. But the thing with working the park crew, the worst thing was just like we had to sit there with a radio. So we were like safety. You know, we'd test the jumps first thing in the morning. Like before the lifts even would go, Dan and I would rip the shitty little Indy 500 up to the top of the park. It'd be icy. And we have to straight air the kickers before we could like sign it off. So that like kind of like honed me to like, don't blow this right now. And I never blew it. But I remember following Dan like hot into the 70-foot table, like at 7:30 in the morning. It's just icy and just straight airing it, you know, and be like, okay, yeah. And just super high. Like I found weed at my young age and I was just like super stoned, which is like probably not the best thing. It was just like, okay, we were loose, man. I was 22, 21. But
I wonder if they're spraying that Roundup stuff on the reefer crops.
I bet they're spraying it on the reefers.
That's a problem.
Yeah, that's a problem. That's a problem.
Anyways, sorry for that.
Oh man, it was crazy times, dude. Jackson was different. It was totally different. It was still pretty cowboy. That's like early 2000s. That was when Travis just like, I remember I moved there like the year after Travis had like the cover of Super Park and just went like, I was like, holy shit, you can be a pro snowboarder from Wyoming? Mm-hmm. I'm interested.
You're all on, man.
Well,
I'm interested.
I want to fast forward a little bit too, because if you look at your career, you have so many footnotes, things to talk about. And if you look at the average career, you didn't get your first paycheck till you're 26, 27, right?
Yeah, I think my first snowboard sponsor was Illuminati, and it was like Lance Pittman.
I remember that. I remember their ads and everything. Yeah.
Yeah, that was like we got yeah. They were great snowboards, and that was my first like. Lance let me live in his house for free one winter. I was like, damn, this is cool. I wasn't getting any money, but then my first real break was. This guy, Eric Pearson, he was the rep for Atomic Snowboards. And Atomic was actually like sick. Alex Andrews was actually 16 on it. And so Pearson signed me. It was the year 2007. And I got a real contract. I think it was like for $12,000. I was like $1,000 a month to snowboard. I was like interested. Yeah. And that was the winter that the whole natural selection thing went down. And so I'd been filming with Travis a little bit. I mean, there's so many stories like how I got hooked up with those guys and the community project. It was a slow evolution of being in Jackson and, you know, really putting in my time and riding and just riding that mountain just honed me to like a different level of rider. Cause you know, when we were working the park, we just take turns, like there were two people working. So one guy would just do a Gandhi lap. Next guy would do a Gandhi lap. So we're just lapping our track all day, ripping the park down. You know, so that just got me just super stoked and super dialed. And then 2005, I'll never forget the first session ever that I knew that I might be able to like do this was in Dick's Ditch on the Terrier. And it was like an insane powder day. We built it and we're hiking it. And Kurt Morgan showed up. And he was filming it, and Pat Moore was 17. Pat shows up, and that was the first time I met Pat. He was like 17, like just this little kid. He never rode powder. And so it was like Pat, John Makins, Lance, me, and Pat, or I said Pat, we're hitting this kicker, and Adam Dow. And we just had this session and got some shots for the community project. And I had bought a sled that year because I knew to like do it, I needed a sled. So I bought this like old Yamaha Mountain Max. And I went out with those guys. I was invited. Kurt was like, hey man, you should like come out with us. So I went out and I got a few shots in the movie, like 2 shots. And I was like, whoa. I mean, it was a monumental moment for me because Travis invited me out on this. He's like, you want to build this huge jump? It was called the Community Gap. Yep. And we went out and built this jump. We spent 2 days building this massive wedge. And I'm just like, what am I didn't sleep for like 2 days. I was like, I'm so scared of this jump, but I'm like, what am I going to do? And so Travis Charlie Marachi and me went out and hit this thing, and I landed this super sketchy frontside 7 on it. And that was a shot in the movie, but I'll never forget driving home from that trailhead that day. I was like, I think I did it. I think it's going to I think like this whole snowboarding thing is going to work. And that was monumental. And then there was another time where it was like Clancy, JJ Thomas, Zach Leach, Sammy Lipke. They were sessioning this other jump across the valley up this other crazy trailhead we were at. And me and the Illuminati crew were hitting this super sketchy step down.
Mosquito? Sorry.
No, it was Cliff Creek.
Okay.
And the super sketchy step down, it was just like this straight uphill toe in to a flat takeoff to like this just never ending landing on a south facing slope, but it was like kind of soft because it was sunny. And everybody was just getting worked on this thing all day. And those dudes finished up their jump, and they were standing on the lip of this jump. And I knew there was like one more hit in me. And the sun was like fading on this landing. And I remember Willie was towing me, and I just told Willie, I was like, just pin it, dude. Just like, give me all you got. He just, yeah. And I did like the biggest cab 5 I've ever done, and like stomped it. And I was just like, I knew that was like, okay, I think I'm on the level. I think we're going to do this. And that was, in my mind, like 2 of the moments in the community project that really defined my direction, you know? Mm-hmm. So, and then we went out and they did the like premiere at Oakley, and I got to experience the whole like premiere thing, and drank way too many Red Bull vodkas.
You got a taste.
I got a taste, dude. And I was like, okay, we're doing this. I guess this is snowboarding. But it was funny because,
is that the premiere at the Oakley office?
Yeah.
I was there.
Yeah, you were probably, I mean, everybody was there. I was like
everybody
the biggest thing. Like, it was the biggest thing in snowboarding at that time.
It's a great video. I need to revisit that one. I haven't watched it in a while. It's so good.
But it was like, that was to be a part of that. Like, just, you know, I was so grateful to even have 2 shots in that movie, you know, and that just changed the whole game for me. I was like, okay, those guys, like Travis believed in me and Kurt believed in me, and I didn't want to let them down, you know. I was just some like freaking rancher kid that had no business being in this world, you know. I was like, yeah, everybody, you know, the style of snowboarding was just so like, back then, you remember, it was like, you know, like the guys were like JP and Jeremy, and like this, like they had this different style. And I remember watching Technical Difficulties being like, dude, I want to, like, that's what I want to be like. But in all that, like, I kind of lost of actually who I was. And until I really figured out like, oh, this is who I am, like, you just got to really, you can't hide what you are, and you just have to just like be your authentic self. That's where like my career really took off, you know. And it took a lot of years to like figure out that it's okay to be a rancher from nowhere, Wyoming, and be in this world, you know, because I wasn't necessarily accepted as like the cool guy, you know. I was temporary, like, what's this guy doing here? Like, fuck, get out of here. But you know, I have a hard time being told no.
The second you're yourself, you're all of a sudden this kind of unique,
yeah,
different snowboarder. And
yeah.
Makes you special.
Because I don't have the tricks as those guys had, so I had to be different, man. Like,
I think it's awesome. I personally love it too, because if you really break it down, if we're gonna get into this, you know, we're jumping ahead, but who gives a shit? You're 41 years old. You've had more sponsors than you ever have. And you're making probably more, I'm assuming, more money than you probably were in your 20s and 30s, right? And so, and I think it's amazing because there's kids out there that they can fucking do a back 10 every try, and they can't get a goddamn sponsor, but they are like talking to a fucking wall. Yeah. And so I think that, you know, people are interested in your story. And that's like, people latch on. They need to know who to cheer for. They need to know who to root for. And I think that it's amazing how snowboarding has, you know, room for people like yourself in it, and also the kid that's 12 doing the fucking 1900. You know what I mean? Like, it's we need it all. That we need a balanced ecosystem. But I'm sure there's salty people in that. And one more thing I do want to add too is from a standpoint of like marketing and stuff like that as well. If I'm going to be going into like nerd fucking marketing guy, but it's like, all right, if you ride for Yeti and you ride for Traeger and you ride for all these brands that are the non-endemics, then basically like an 18-year-old kid is not going to go buy a Yeti cooler for fucking a bunch, you know, that's expensive, or a nice Traeger drill. But they are going to buy like on a 40, 50-year-old adult that has a family and has a nice job at this point in his life, he's going to buy the Yeti. He's going to buy the Traeger grill. He wants the Carter smoked meat. So you need somebody to speak to that audience. And it's like, there's some, I don't know. I just kind of wanted to highlight that quickly before, I know we're getting off the rails here, but I think it's fascinating.
I mean, totally. It's like, I understood where my spot was, and I'm not the trick guy. Like I like to, I like to go ride big lines and do some front threes and just make it look smooth. And I'm at a good place in my career because I get to kind of like pick and choose how I want to ride with. And I think that's probably most valuable for me. I'm not told who I have to go out and ride with or whatever. I choose everyone that I get to step foot in the mountains with. And I think, it's so important because the mountains are dangerous, and I'm really a true believer. You're only as strong as your weakest link. And that doesn't even have to do with skill. It's like your attitude. Yeah. Your attitude is everything, man. Like how you approach things, how you're going to push through adversity, how you're going to come out the other end. And to just like lay down and quit and be a, like victim. Poor me. I'm like, fucking like, if I did that, man, I would have never gotten to where I am. Like there's been so many times where I had excuses, like excuses are just like, you're just denying yourself success, and I think, what I really found, like the hardest things I've ever done is what molded me to be what I am. And I think you don't remember those like really glory moments, and maybe a few of them, but like you remember all the shitty days. Like that's always what you remember. You're like, fuck, I suffered that day.
That is actually a perfect segue for a guest question from none other than friend of the show, Sean Black.
Hey, what's up, Mark? This is your friend, Sean Black, and I have a 3-part question for you. First off, what was the hardest day of your life? What is the best piece of advice you've ever gotten? And can you please explain the process of grafting a calf? Thank you.
A lot there, though.
Wow. We all know Sean likes to talk, so of course he asks me a 3-part question. I love Sean Black, by the way. He's helped me so much. Sean Black, hardest day of my life. Man, not to be a downer. I think one of the hardest days of my life was burying my cousin in Arlington Cemetery. He was a Navy SEAL. His name was Mark Thomas Carter. We were both named after our grandfather. We were like twins, man. And he passed away in 2007, December 12th. And so like flying out there and burying him was probably, I'd say that was close to the toughest day I've ever had in my life. And he really inspired me to, like, that was the year the natural selection went down. And like, I was like, man, that dude sacrificed everything. And so I just really made an effort to be better and just like put my all into everything from that moment on. And that was where my snowboard career really took off, was after losing him. So hardest day of my life. That was definitely one of the hardest days of my life. And then, shout out to Mark Thomas Carter, man. He was the 0.5% of men out here. I got so much respect for all the veterans and everybody that's, fought for our country, and the men and women. And there's a reason we get to sit here and do a podcast and not have to worry about, all the crazy shit happening in the world. So, fuck, that was heavy. But, and then the next part would be, what's the best advice I've ever gotten? And I think the best advice I had ever gotten, and it goes back to when I dropped out of college. I was riding with my old man. He's like stoic, and he has so many things to say. He just says these one-liners. I'm like, where did you get that? Like, damn, Dad, I'll remember that. But I was riding, and a 19-year-old kid who's just like super insecure about like what your life is doing. And I was like, Dad, I'm like done with college. Like, I'm going to drop out. And he just goes, Mark, as long as you work hard, you'll always be okay. And I was just like, damn, all right, like, work hard. And that just gave me so much comfort into just like taking this crazy leap into snowboarding. I was like, worst thing that can happen, man, is I'll go pound some nails or work on the ranch. Like, I always like had that as a security blanket, and I knew I could work hard because I grew up with a gnarly work ethic, but I knew that like, for whatever reason, that like stuck in my head, and I was like, well, fuck it. I might as well be working hard at something I want to do rather than something I have to do. So that was the best advice I've ever gotten. And then what did he say? Grafting a calf? Oh, all right. We'll get into grafting calves. So like in the spring when the cows are having their calves. So the thing about a cow is she recognizes her calf through smell, like, and maybe a little bit of the beller. But smell is everything. So like you'll see a cow when they're trying to mother up, she'll smell calves, and then she smells hers, and then they're like joined.
Beller.
Okay. You know, like you can do that too. You can call cows in, like if they're looking for their calf, you can call, or like if you're like, yeah.
You sounded just like that.
Yeah. I've done it a couple times.
I thought there was one in the room.
so like it's a little morbid, but it's just truth, and you'll lose calves. Little babies die, they freeze, or whatever happens to them. They're born dead. So you'll have bum calves too, because maybe you'll have a twin, or like the mom will die. So you have these and a bum calf is a calf without a mom, like an orphan calf. We call them bums. And so the best thing to do is you want to put a cow, like find a bum calf, and you want to find a cow that lost a calf and put her on it so she has a baby. So you're basically getting kind of trick her. So you get her calf and the dead calf, and you skin it. You get the hide off of it, and then you put it on the live calf, right? Grafting. And you put it on the live calf, the skin, and then she'll smell that. She's like, oh, that's my baby. And then so he'll wear it for a few days, and you cut it off, and she's like, good to go. So that's grafting a calf.
And that works.
Wow.
It works.
I
Works.
grew up in Vermont around a lot of cows. Is cow tipping a real thing?
No.
Okay.
I've never seen it. I've never tried it. Like, I think a cow would just kick the shit out of you. You try to come up and run. I don't know.
Old timers in Vermont always talked about
Really?
it. Like when they were young, that's what they did in high school.
I could totally be wrong, but I've never seen a cow sleep standing up.
Me neither.
They lay down. You might be able to kick her in the belly over or something, but I don't know.
Bud's actually said on a show once he touched a horse penis and it was the softest material he's ever felt.
Oh.
Fact.
Yeah.
J2.
Have you ever heard of the pearl?
What's the pearl?
Well, so a horse. This might be too much information.
Oh,
but
let's go.
Like an old horse, man. Their old cock, you got to pull it out of the sheath. Like the vet will do it, and they'll just have like gnarly, scabby, like it gets super dirty in there, and they'll form this thing they call the pearl. There's like a hard calcium thing in there that he'll knock out of there. Yeah, I just saw
Can you bead those up and wear them as a necklace? What are we talking?
Yeah, it smells about like a horse cock.
It does.
So
Support for the Bomb Hole is brought to you by our friends over at Manscaped. Now, holidays are right around the corner. If you're looking for a great gift, get yourself a Manscaped Lawnmower 4.0, perhaps the Performance Package 4.0.
When I was a kid, I used a normal hair trimmer to shave my ball sack. Almost lost it.
You almost lost the satchel.
Yes, almost cut off the ball sack. You ever tried that on the normal one? They're not designed like the Manscaped. The Manscaped is smooth. Just trims off your hair with nothing. Does not hurt at all.
You basically almost neutered yourself by accident by not using a Manscaped.
Yeah, basically almost became one ball stone.
One ball stone. Well, I'll tell you what, these the family jewels are precious, and these things have an awesome little plastic safeguard, so you're not going to be ripping satchel out there. Another thing that they got is the Crop Preserver. This is their body wash. It's actually called the Crop Cleanser.
I actually washed my beard with that this morning.
Exactly. We use it at the Bomb Hole. We use it as a hand wash as well. And it's nice. It's multi-purpose. You can wash your ball sack or you can wash your hands. So that's fantastic.
And I don't know, have you ever been on an airplane and seen that guy with nose hair pretty much protruding out his nose and it almost looks like a mustache? Mm-hmm. Get the weed whacker and bam, get rid of that nose hair.
It's basically a nose and ear hair trimmer, right?
Yeah, and it makes it, you know how when you tweeze your nose hair, it hurts like a boom. You use this thing, no pain, comes right off. It's actually kind of fun to use.
Holy smoke. And then you don't want to be looking like, Yoda. Yoda's got that ear hair. You don't want to be rocking
and that nose hair.
And that nose hair. So again, head on over to manscaped.com. Use promo code BOMBHOLE and you'll save 20%. If you're going to buy one, might as well save 20%. Again, head over to manscaped.com. Promo code BOMBHOLE. Get yourself or a loved one a great gift. I think this is a perfect time to transition into a question from none other than Alex Pashley. Here we go.
Bombhole, how are ya? Alex Pashley here. Question for Mr. Carter. Carter, you love to talk about milking snakes and snake milking. If you could go into a little bit of a description on exactly what snake milking is, and have you ever milked the snake? Thanks, guys. Later.
Yeah, milkers, snake milkers. I mean, I'll just tell you the whole context of where snake milking came from was we'd been filming a lot, and for whatever reason I was watching like a documentary on milking snakes, like venom, how they milk them.
So that okay.
So it was like milking. That's what they call milking the snake. And we were in the parking lot one morning, and everybody pulls up, and they're just chilling. And I just talk a lot of shit. And I was like, "Hey, what's up, you fucking snake milkers?" And so it just became this like I just started calling everybody snake milkers. And it doesn't really have like a general description. It's just kind of like you can throw it around like call people milkers or snake milkers. It's just kind of like my friends, or you can use it in a lot of different contexts.
Snake milkers.
Interesting.
Hey, snake
I
milkers.
watch a lot of hockey, and I was watching the guys mic'd up. I think it was Behind the B. It was Behind the B, a show about the Bruins, and in hockey, they talk shit to each other aggressively, and one of the guys was like, "Suck it, you fucking milk drinker." And then the guy next to him, he's like, "Milk drinker, huh?" He's like, "Yeah, guy likes to milk drink, or like guy likes to drink milk." And you're like, "Oh, okay." But like, yeah, it just sounds like just good banter to me.
Yeah,
Good endearing term.
It's good endearing, and it's like it's not that offensive, and you can kind of take it with whatever you want to take it as. And I use milker a lot. I'm like, "What's up, you milkers?" Like these milkers over here are like dragging their feet. Snake milkers, I don't know. Pashley loves it. He just loves it.
I'm going to ask you a Patreon question. This is from Sean Gruhagen. He
Okay.
wants to know about river dicking.
I did not coin that term. That is a Willie McMillan term, but it's basically, as a man, you jump into a river and you might get a little shrinkage. So basically, yeah, it's river dicking.
Just another word for shrinkage.
Yeah, shrinkage, river dicking.
Love it.
And we can use it in a lot of contexts of like just riding your snowmobile at 20 below and you're like river dicking. It's a cold day, we're river dicking. So.
Got it. It's your dick shriveling up because it's cold.
Yeah, river dicking.
Got it. You were talking earlier about. I'm going to go off on a little sidebar. Talking to Willie McMillan, he said you have to ask him about the time he was out with Travis Rice and he was ghost riding his sled.
Oh,
what happened there?
wow. I came in super hot, got a brand new first year, signed with Atomic, got second in the national selection. Travis was like, let's go film. I got this like, Atomic gave me this Arctic Cat M8. I was so stoked.
Arctic Cat, huh?
Yeah, Arctic
That's
Cat.
a little bit of a kind of, shit, wrong. That was going to be a gunshot.
I mean,
to do there.
meh.
Crack a beer.
Arctic
So-
Cat's kind of a tough look. I'm just going to say that. But
It's a tough look, but it was free.
was
so
free.
so
Okay.
Travis and I, we're up at the 6 zone. Like, we're just gonna drop in and ride this just like mellow warm up line. And so he drops his nice, beautiful, brand new Skidoo in, it was off, locked it, let it go, and I'm like, well, I could just. Oh no, he had his on, so it ran way out there. And I just was like, well, I'll just turn mine off and it won't run into it. Well, I just dropped it in behind him, not thinking I'm a rookie. And we're just sitting there watching the sled pick up speed. I'm like, oh shit. And it just ass packs his sled so bad. Like freaking, I'll never forget it. It was St. Patty's Day. And shit goes everywhere. Travis just looks at me. We ride down to it. The damage is as bad as it sounded. My oil's leaking out. We're on top of this ridge. So I just haul ass up to this ridge and able to ghost ride all the way out with no oil down to the highway. Yeah, of course, that was the day. And I immediately called Pearson. I was like, hey, you guys don't happen to have insurance on that sled, do you? He's like, nope. It cost me like 5 G's to fix everything. So I was just like, note to self. Yeah.
Worked your sled more than his, I imagine, huh?
Oh yeah, but he still I think he definitely got the insurance agent to charge the utmost on his because I ended up paying like $2,500 for him. I'm like, cool, dude, thanks.
Tunnel was probably bent.
Tunnel was bent. He's like, oh, he even told me, he's like, oh, the cheater rack, that must be like $700. I was like, what? You fucking got it for free, dude. I had to pay for all this shit. Whatever, but it was a bad deal.
I'm actually the most surprised at the fact that you rode an Arctic Cat for a period of time. That's actually a little bit, interesting. Just when you think you know somebody.
I know, man. I know. It was a good thing that thing just just got destroyed.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, let's get into a section of the show we call Name That Video Part. Okay, Name That Video Part is presented by our new sponsor, Mammoth Mountain. Now, Mammoth Mountain kicks ass. They're open now. If you're interested in going and doing some snowboarding, they are officially open, and they're home to the famed Unbound terrain parks. Right, bud?
Yeah, in peak season, Unbound operates 8 parks and 3 different half pipes. They got one of those little ones for old dogs like me, which is pretty dope.
Yeah, they got parks from all ability levels. I've been going there since I was 18, pretty much every spring, and at least once a year, and the place is incredible. If you want to get good at snowboarding, go ride Mammoth Main Park. It is unreal. The level of riding is good. The jumps are perfect. One of my favorite places on planet Earth to ride a snowboard park is Mammoth Mountain. Now they're giving away a 4-pack of tickets to Mammoth Mountain plus some bombhole swag to the Name That Video Part winner. So the stakes just got raised. If you are the winner of Name That Video Part, you're going to get a bunch of tickets to Mammoth, right, bud?
For the next 3 months only, so be on your game.
This is going to be good. Sharpen your teeth in the video part realm and check out Mammoth Mountain. What's your confidence level 0 through 10?
8.
Oh, I like that.
That's
I like
coming
that
in
strong.
hot.
I like that.
A lot of people, we hear a lot of 1s, 0.5s,
People are-
2s, 3s.
I think you're going to get this one.
I don't know, dude. I'm just talking shit.
Here we go. I think you're going to get this one. I've also heard you hate this song. Here we go.
Dude, everyone knows this one.
Oh,
Come on.
that's all.
Yes,
Travis.
it is.
Yeah, of course. I'm in that fucking part. I should get that.
Yes, and Willie McMillan, he said, use that song because you hate that fucking song.
Everybody hates that song.
I saw it had like 44 million views on YouTube when I was looking up. I was like, holy Jesus. Okay.
What's the band called?
Muse?
I don't know.
No.
I forget. The Kids.
The Kids.
The Kids.
No, Kids was the name of the song.
Kids is the song.
Kids is the song.
Shit, I forget.
Those damn kids.
The next one, and this was big because Mammoth is giving away some tickets to go along with this.
That's right.
So name that video part for the listeners. Here we go. You guys know the drill. If you know which part this is, comment on Mark Carter's photo on our Instagram at the bombhole when this comes out. For the answer, winner will be crowned a bombhole prize pack and some Mammoth lift tickets. Here we go.
I know this one.
All right, I want to get into kind of back to
You,
some snowboard talk.
Forgot to give him his cool.
Oh, shit. You know what? Before we forget, I forgot to give you actually just earned yourself a bombhole cooler.
Oh, snap.
It's not a Yeti, so I don't know if you're even contractually allowed to even look at that. But
Man, that's
We can
steezy.
slap a Yeti sticker on
yeah,
it.
we got it's filled with bombhole merch. You got a coffee
Oh,
mug,
sick.
you got some hats, you got
Thank
all
you.
kinds of, on the top there's a little thing that, you got it open. Yeah, there we go.
That thing's going to be on eBay.
Yeah,
probably.
that'll
Rides
probably be
for
on eBay
Yeti.
in 30 seconds. But
Oh, man. Thanks. Well, why did they get that?
what's that?
Why did they win
Because
that?
you won,
You
Name That
guess
Video
what
Part.
video part it is.
Oh, damn.
We actually give it to all of our guests, but we make it seem like even if you don't get it, we give it to.
Hey, man.
You got it.
I knew I came in hot, but you guys really helped me. Gave me a crutch on that one.
And so, but yeah, let's get back into some snowboard talk here because I want to talk about some of the correlations between ranching and snowboarding. And I've noticed that, if you think about the way you navigate the topography of, the land, I guess, essentially, when you're ranching, you're just covering acres and acres of land and kind of corralling these cattle. And with snowboarding, the way you approach it via split board or snowmobile, you're kind of doing the same thing. What are the similarities between, reading the land and both of those things?
Yeah, I mean, it's like the parallels there's a lot of parallels. And I think it's, you start first with, where you're going to go, kind of understanding the terrain you're going to be entering. Second, you're going to have your crew. You're going to need your gear. And I love like putting all my gear together. Like, you got you try to be as comfortable as you can in the suffering. And then just going in, having intention entering, whether it be the mountains or the gather, and having an idea, but not being so set on something that you can't audible. I always have like an escape route. I'm never like, I have an idea, like when I'm riding, I have an idea of what I want to do, but I'm not just like, no matter what, I'm going to do that. I'm going to like go out there and like listen to it, like feel the energy and like listen to whatever the signs are telling me, whether it's the crows circling. I'm very intuitive and like the coyote crossing my path on the way out. I like listen for all the signs, because I think when you're open and your intention is right, like the signs are there. You can't like, don't cloud your decision making with your like maybe your ego a little bit. And then just, trying to, be smart, just like beyond all the decision making, you still have to like get the job done. It's like whatever that may be, using your tools that you have, using the people that you have, because at the end of the day, whether it's gathering or riding big lines, like it's coming home safe. That's my main goal when I leave. I'm like, okay, we got all the bases covered. We're set up for success, but like nothing's worth anybody's health. So I think if all those things come together, and it's like you're going to have the hard days riding where you're just going to take a beating and your pride is just bruised when you come home. You got to let that go. And especially even with like ranching, you're going to have those big days where you just suffer. You might not get it all done. It's like that was yesterday, man. Like you go into the next day, in order to be productive, you have to let all that go, because that doesn't matter. It was yesterday, whether you didn't land or you didn't get everything. And it's like with gathering, there's less of a pride thing, like with your ego, like getting bruised, like you may just be pissed and your hands are numb. But like with snowboarding and filming, you put all this effort into breaking open a zone and like getting there and being productive. And you have this idea, the stars are going to align, you're going to land everything. You're going to first track, the natural hit. And then you just tomahawk first track, you're like, it's such a mental game to just like let that go and not be angry and just go into the next thing. Because I don't know, forcing anything, you just end up in a bad place. So I just try to let it flow, listen to the signs, and never force it, because I don't know. That's just my approach. And I see people force it and they'll get it done. But I'm like, are you having fun? I mean, I know it's a job, dude. Like people are like, you're working. I was like, it's not 30 below and my arm isn't up a heifer's ass. So It's actually, snowboarding's pretty chill.
That's what I've been wondering too this whole time. You grew up, basically on a ranch your whole freaking life. And then you go out with snowboarding's very nonchalant, relaxed, a lot of laziness going on. A lot of people like to smoke weed, which is totally fine. But when you come, are you basically just like, Jesus, these snowboards are soft?
I mean, I'm guilty of being soft too, man. Like, yeah, I think it's a very selfish sport. We can all agree. And it's like, it's not necessarily like you weren't honed. It's not like skating or surfing where you were like a super dirt poor kid who got a skateboard and were super talented and you ended up being this amazing snowboarder. No, it's like, usually you probably have some opportunities coming up snowboarding, like you could afford to get a snowboard. You could afford to go snowboarding. You may have got to go to Mount Hood. Like it's not this world where you just fought tooth and nail to make it happen because that's all you had. It's like for most pro snowboarders, there's an out, I think if you're open to that, and I think a lot of guys don't give themselves out. If you identify as just a pro snowboarder, like you're gonna have a hard fall from the top, And I think you see the guys that are smart and they manage, they're like, this is temporary, dude. Like this shit could go, all these contracts could go away next year. But what's your end game? So if you've been a pro snowboarder your whole life, you probably never had like a job where you had to do something you didn't want to do, and then you're gonna look back at your snowboard career and be like, oh, the snow wasn't good enough, and you're like, dude, don't be a little. It's like. The fuck, dude?
Have you ever been so cold out there that you wished your hand was in a heifer's ass?
No.
It's that bad. Huh?
It's not that bad, but it's you gotta clean it off after.
Yeah.
And like
they have those big arm condoms.
Well, that's just I like to no glove.
You're one of those guys.
Yeah,
huh?
Well.
He likes to go in raw. He's
a raw dogger.
You're like, don't mind the glove. No, I've never seen a rancher put a glove on to like pull a calf or anything.
Really?
Nah, dude.
That's just made for TV, huh?
If you're preg testing, which is totally different, when they stick their arm up the ass and fill the embryo, they wear a glove.
Okay.
They wear a big sleeve because you're doing that to like, you're punching like, I've done like 800 heads
sleeve
in a day.
and you just opt not to.
You could.
Yeah. It's raw dog.
Yeah, it seems like maybe waiting in the clouds is definitely better than shoving your entire arm up a cow's ass.
Yeah. It could be.
It could be.
Well, let's pivot back into. I know you had a huge breakout when you did well at the national selection. How was that experience?
Oh my gosh. That was one of those that was like one of those moments in my life where, that was just such a pivotal point in my career. And I don't think I would be where I'm at without that. Cause it's such a, like that, the industry at that time was, you had to do something to be a pro. Like there was like something like Travis on the cover at Super Park. Like there was something you had to do great in order to do it. There was no social media. There was no like, you're marketing yourself. Like you weren't marketing yourself. It was like photographers and magazines and videos. It was like your peers judging you, being like, yeah, he's in. It wasn't like, I'm a pro. Like I think pro snowboarding is thrown around pretty loosely these days. Mm-hmm. Anybody can be a pro, man. Like you get paid to snowboard, neat story. But like the natural selection for me was my breakout, and I was nobody. I was a dark horse. Luckily I was friends with Travis and he saw something in me, and Kurt. They saw something and they gave me that chance. They gave me that opportunity, that was coming. And I just remember Kurt was just like, dude, we're going to give you this chance. Just don't blow it. And I'm like, oh, cool, dude. Thanks for the support. But I knew, I had the advantage. We were on my home turf. Like we were in Jackson, stuff I rode all the time. I had this momentum from losing my cousin Mark. And I was just like coming into it. I was like, man, all these opportunities mean nothing if you're not going to like jump at them and just put your all into it. And mentally, I knew something great was going to happen. I just came into it with this mindset of like, dude, it's like go for death. Gooch would say that when he's a kid. He's like, oh, just skating to go for death. And I was like, okay, this is it. And I was going against like all these guys that I'd been watching, like Guy and Nico and like Vole and all these dudes that were just like my heroes. Granted, I'm like probably older than them. So I was like this dark horse. I was like in this weird position. Everybody's like, what's this guy doing here? And, the stars aligned for Travis and all of us, and it started snowing. And I mean, it didn't stop snowing. And I was just feeling it. And I mean, that was such a magical trip, or such a magical week. Everybody came together. We had early champs. We were all just riding together, and the energy on that mountain was just like something I've never felt since. There was just this unity within the snowboarding, and all these guys, the egos were just left behind, and everybody was just smiles. Even the competition, nobody was like serious. It wasn't a serious like, dude, you got to win. I felt no pressure to win. I was just like, do what you do, land on your feet. Something will happen. And I'll never forget the day that we did Dick's, and literally like I had two shitty runs, and it was kind of like, I was like, oh, I'm in there, I'm here. Like, I'm just lucky to be here. And then I just remember like listening to myself. I was like, dude, you're like kind of like blowing it. Like you need to just go like just go hard. And so they gave us a third like wild card run, and I did like a front seven tail, and like everything came together, and I just landed everything. And I was like, holy cow, that felt really good. And I think I was sitting in third position at that point of everybody. I was like, whoa, okay. Really, it's like, I think, okay, I can do this now. It's like gave me this motivation, this confidence. And then Casper Bowl was like the second day of competition. I think it was the last day, and finally we got the sun, and I mean, it had been nuking. Casper Bowl was as stacked as I've ever seen it. And so I was in third position, and Travis was first, Lando was second, me, and we got to pick our running order and dropping order into Casper Bowl, and Travis is like, third. And I'm like, what, third? You don't want to go first? And Lando's like, he kind of like threw Lando off. I think it was Lando. And he's like, fourth. And I was like, first. I was like, let's do this, man. Like, I'll go first. And I rode this line that I've never rode again, just straight down the middle off, and it was perfect. It was so deep. And I remember like feeling good about it. And, you know, the night before that, I'd literally gone out to dinner with the two friends, and I was like, I got it, ladies. Like, I'll get dinner. You know, I swiped my card. They're like, insufficient funds. I'm like, oh, shit. And the next day, that next evening, we had that crazy comp, and I got second. You know, Travis got first, and I got second and won like 15 G's. And it was just like, I mean, that was it for me. You know, it was like a defining moment. I remember just thinking to myself, like, holy cow, like, I can't believe that I actually just won this and like was above all these of my heroes. And that gave me the confidence to just kind of, to know that I was in it, you know, and that's where the contracts really started coming. North Face saw that and they signed me. I signed with Weekend Snowboards. Yep. But then, you know, I had this like lull in my career. I thought that I needed to, you know, and I worked with Travis on the next year with Absinthe, and that experience was just really tough for me. I kind of fell out of love with snowboarding. Like I'd had this like extreme high, and everything was good in my life, and I was dating this girl, and everything was really good, but like my fire wasn't there, man. I kind of like peaked almost, and I just had to step away from the shadow of Trav. Because I mean, he is like in snowboarding, man, like working with him, his work ethic is so gnarly. Like he will wear you out. Like nobody can stay on that wave, you know, on that like momentum that he has. And he's so good at what he does. But dude, I was worn out. I was like, oh man, I'm beat. I just need to be, it's like working for somebody almost. It's like, you need to step out and find your own path, you know? And that's where I really had to step away and go through some like extremely hard times to like really realize, hey man, like, what are you doing? Why are you snowboarding? Like, are you snowboarding for the money, or are you snowboarding because you love to snowboard? And until that happened to me, like I was lost, man. Like I could have given snowboarding up. I was flying around the world with Justin Timberlake. Like shit was good. I was making money. I was just like, this is what's up. And you just kind of get entitled, you know, you're just kind of like complacent. And I've always said that complacency is just death, man. Like you find yourself in this position of comfort, and it's what's driving you, you know? And, you know, it's like the shit that happened to me, you know, it was fucking crazy, man. Like kind of a backstory, you know, you've heard about my upbringing and how I lived off the land and all these things. But, you know, through my whole like early snowboarding career, I was guiding hunting with my brother. Like we were guiding hunting on the ranch, and, you know, we managed the animals in a way we were only like hunting big, mature animals. And we'd gotten kind of sideways, you know, like from maybe the lack of like respect for the law and the lack of acknowledgement. And living in this small town, you know, we were just kind of like, really nothing can happen to us. And so what we were doing is, you know, our area is it's called a draw. So you put in for a lottery. If you're out of state or in state, you put in for area 45, and then you are allowed, it's like might take you, I don't know, five years to draw this tag, but you'll get it. Well, as a landowner, we are guaranteed a tag every year. And so what we were doing is like, well, I get a tag. Why don't we just sell it to the guy that wants to hunt with us, and then we'll take him hunting? So we're guaranteed to like get these guys to come hunting. So it's like, and the thing about selling landowner tags, and not to justify what we did, we broke the law, but it's legal in a lot of states. It's legal in Utah to do exactly what we were doing. Like Deseret Ranch, you come to the landowner, he can sell your tag. I can't shoot an animal, but now you've bought my tag, you go shoot an animal. So that's what we were doing. And we didn't really realize like the extremity, like how extreme this was. Like, you know, it was ignorance, you know, and that's no excuse. Like it's just
against
like,
the law in your state.
It's a misdemeanor. So it's a misdemeanor in Wyoming to sell your landowner tag. And where it got really messy is the guys that we were working with from the guys that wanted to come out and hunt with us were from Oregon. There was like these brothers, and they were like, hey, we'll just buy your landowner tags every year. We'll come out, you sell us the tags, take us hunting, boom. And it wasn't like
across state lines. Sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah. So, and the thing is like, we were just like, oh, cool. Right on. We're making money. And I wasn't like making a ton of money. It was like, for me though, like it was a lot of money. Like like $3,000 for working in the fall. I was like, holy cow, this is like a big deal. Like this is going to help me in my life. And so we were doing that for about 8 years. And not every hunter that came through like bought a landowner tag. We have legit guys, but these brothers, there was like I think we would do like 2 tags a year with them. And it didn't mean they got an elk every year, because we always managed like, hey, we're only shooting the mature bulls, no babies, young bulls. So a lot of times they'd go home without a bull. A lot of years they'd get a nice bull. And so it just kind of got into this cycle of, I was at a point in my life where I was hating guiding people. I hated doing it because I was like, it just like getting animals for somebody that necessarily didn't deserve it, is just kind of like was against everything I was. And I didn't feel right about it, but we continued to do it because I was doing it for the money. And I kind of felt like I was helping my brother too. He was in a position where he was doing it. It was his business. I was a guide. I was cooking. And so we got ourselves into this full shit show. And I had no idea that like the storm that was coming. And they had one of their friends come out and hunt with us. And he ended up not being successful with an animal. And he went back to Oregon and basically told the Oregon, turned us in, was like, hey, these guys are poaching these animals. They have a big poaching ring and all this stuff. And I will say that, not to defend myself, that anything I did was right, but every animal that was killed had a tag on it. Just wasn't killed by me. So, man, one morning, it was June 6th. I'll never forget it. The feds, I mean, they come in hot. 6 a.m. I had like 5 of them show up at my door. My brother had like, I think 15 of them show up at the ranch. He was out on his tractor, like came through the house, confiscated everything, walked all over his floor with muddy shoes. He had babies. It wasn't like, we weren't hiding anything. We had a website with these illegal animals. That's how like we didn't really understand how extreme this was. And they could have came and asked us. They could have been like, hey, what's going on? We're like, we're doing this. It's illegal. Yes, totally am in the wrong. But to come in with that heat was just like an eye-opening experience for me. And I remember going through it. It was like very surreal. I was like, holy shit, like this is happening. Like I didn't even know what I'd done really. I knew there was some like shady hunting shit there, but I was like, holy cow. And these guys are like, you're in deep trouble. I'm like, oh, okay. And then we didn't hear about anything for a year. I didn't even get a lawyer. I was like, whoa, dude, like I think we're in trouble. Maybe it's going to go away. And then, I didn't tell any of my sponsors or anything. I was just kind of like milking. It was like 2010. So I was high on the horse, man. Like I said, I was flying around Timberlake and just life was good, having lunch with Elton John. I'm just like, I'm rich. Didn't appreciate any of it. And in 2011, September, we get papers in the mail indicting us. And so we were indicted on, so where it all got really tricky was if none of these animals had left Wyoming, it would have been a misdemeanor, probably $5,000, $10,000 fine. I'd have lost my hunting rights for maybe a few years. But since a couple of these animals were taken back to Oregon by the hunters, it crossed this interstate lines calling the violation of the Lacey Act. And that's where the feds were like, gotcha. And they came in, dude. And I got indicted. I'll never forget. I went to Casper, stood in front of the federal court, and they indicted me and my brother each on 11 felonies apiece. So I was facing 55 years in prison, $4.5 million in fines. They indicted my dad on 3 felonies, which he just owned the ranch. He was never even involved in the hunting. And so he was indicted. And I literally was like, I am so fucked right now. I wrote a check for $20,000 to a lawyer to represent me. And I knew like, dude, the shitstorm was coming. I was like, okay. So I had to sit with that for a year and a half. I'm like, okay, I'm going to prison for like 55 years for these elk. And I'm like, whoa. And it was really hard for me to understand. Like I'm like, okay, I didn't kill anybody, but I'm facing like murder charges. I admit, like I totally cooperated with government. Man, I sat down for a proffer, which is like you sit down with the feds. There's like 10 feds. You sit down and they grill you and they ask you about everything, and you tell them the truth, top to bottom. And if they think you're lying, they're gonna screw you over. But if they think you're like telling the truth, I don't know if they went lenient, but they should. I've never been a liar. I told the truth. I told them everything, man. I was just like, hey, you know, what are we gonna do here, boys? Like I will tell you everything. Like I wasn't trying to hide anything, you know, and not to defend it. Like I broke the law, man, and you know, like the long arm of the law came down tough. But I remember through that whole experience, I was like, take notes because you're gonna learn a lot through this whole experience. Like just take notes, understand how these guys work, and you know, this is going to be one hell of a learning experience. And so, man, I just, a year and a half, it taught me a lot of patience because I had no idea what was going to happen. I really thought like, man, I was going to prison. Everything was over. But when we got indicted, then that was when the media started pumping all this stuff. Like we were poaching. And I mean, I learned that the media can basically write anything they want without even fact checking. And what were you going to do? You know, I was getting advice from like an A-list celebrity. I was like, dude, what do I do? And he's like, give him nothing. Like, don't say anything. Just give him nothing. You don't pick a fight with somebody that buys ink by the barrel. I was like, note to self. So they just, you know, from the local media to the big papers. I mean, I was front page with my family, just, you know, talking about how bad of people we were. And like the comments, you couldn't read that. Cause I mean, they were like, kill them, hang them, you know, all this shit. I was like, whoa, okay, well, this is crazy. That's shit. Fucked up. You know, crazy shit. And then, you know, I think what the fuck was that? It had nothing to do with snowboarding. Right. But there was some dude, was it Boardistan, wrote an article and just blew it out there. And then Trans World Business picked it up and then it was all over. And then I'm getting calls from all my sponsors like, dude, you okay? I was like, I don't know, man. But they knew my integrity and they knew what kind of person I was, like, especially like the companies like North Face, like they stuck by me, man. Like, I'm not going to say I got any raises, but you know, I was transparent with them at that point. But before I really felt bad, I should have been like out the gate transparent with what was going on and accountable for my actions. Because like, I'm a hypocrite if I'm not accountable for my actions and to take full responsibility for the mistakes that I've made. And we got through it, man, but it was like super scary. I mean, so basically I was in Japan trying to limp along my snowboard career that was just like my life was falling apart. Girlfriend left me for good reason. I was stressed, man. Like it sucked. I sucked to be around. Like I'm like, oh, well, what's the point, man? I was playing victim. I was like, oh, poor me. But I'm like, dude, suck it up. You're snowboarding. You haven't lost anything yet. So just like prepare for the worst, hope for the best. I'm in Japan. I'm hoping I'm not getting felonies. Boom. Email from my lawyer. And he's like, you're getting 3 felonies. This is the plea bargain. You plead on these 3 felonies. And then $75,000 donation to the Game and Fish. And then you're going to go to trial. You're going to go to court. You're going to go get sentenced, but you won't be going to trial. Because if I went to trial, like I could have really faced 55 years in prison. If I would have been like, you're wrong, blah blah blah, I'm fighting this, I would have spent hundreds of $1,000s on a lawyer and probably ended up in prison, you know, over this shit. Mm-hmm. So I was like, man, that was a tough day. I'll never forget in the elevator in Niseko. I was like, fuck. All right, well, this is my life. I'm a felon, man. I'm going to be a felon. So I like bit that bullet. I got through the winter. It was tough. And then into that spring, then we went to court, or we went to Cheyenne to the federal courthouse, which is, I advise anyone, don't ever do that. Don't go to the fed. Like, don't mess with the feds. And then I stood in front of the judge, and she was, you know, she'd never seen anybody facing what I was facing with the record I had, which was 0 record. You know, I had some bullshit on my younger stuff, but I stood up, I told her the truth. I got 3 years on supervised probation, and, you know, like my plea was 3 felonies, $75,000. And, and then my brother stood up, they sentenced him to 1.5 years in prison and the same $75,000. And then we were able to like appeal and plead, and he ended up doing like three months in federal prison, which was luckily, you know, that was, we dealt with it. But, you know, I just learned a valuable lesson. Like I was like, first off, like the way I learned the whole system, and I was like, that's scary shit. So take note. And then it really gave me this fire. I remember going back into that winter, like I'd lost most of my sponsors. I had nothing, but Gooch was like my mentor. And I was like, okay, I don't have travel budget. I don't have the means to go do what the pro snowboarders do. I'm going to stick in Jackson. I'm going to rip my sled. Gooch and I are going to film. We had Joe Carter like just starting out filming. And I just like got back to the roots of it, man. And that's where it all changed for me. That was my whole perception shifted on like why I was snowboarding. I was like, it wasn't for the money. It wasn't for the fame. It was like, cause I love being in the mountains. And Gooch was my mentor in that whole process. And like, he really stood by me and gave me some great advice. And going into that winter, it was like 2013, man, I found myself. I found who I was. And from that moment on, like I just did it for myself. I didn't listen to other people, what they had to say. I didn't worry about the outside world being critical of my decisions. I was just like, I stood up. I was accountable for everything I did. I took responsibility, and I was like, man, this is what's up. Let's move on. Like I don't live in the past. Like I fucked up. Let's move on. And you know, I don't ask for forgiveness, but like redemption is a real thing. And to be able to like be where I'm at in this world and now and successful in my snowboarding career and actually start hunting again, which was a really sore subject for me. I mean, I can't have guns. I can't vote. Like, I know what it's like to not have rights. Like people talk about like losing rights. I was like, listen, dude, like you don't want to lose your rights, man. Like freedom is everything to me. And I'm barely a US citizen. Mm-hmm. So it's like, I understand how all this works. But like redemption for me was picking up a bow and being mentored by John Dudley. And that all happened through Yeti. They were like such like a vessel for me to like open my mind up again and open my heart up to hunting again. And then just like finding bow hunting, man, like, and like being back out there for the right reasons. It just like changed my life. And like, I like snowboarding and I like bow hunting. Like those are two things that I'll do the rest of my life, you know? And I just think, it's okay to mess up and it's okay to make mistakes. It's like human, man. Like we've all fucked up, but just acknowledge and be accountable and be responsible for your decisions. And like, that's all people ask, but like, then forgive, because like that's in our human DNA to forgive people if they're willing to be responsible and move on from that, you know? And I think not forgiving is really just unhuman, you know, inhuman or whatever you would say. But it's just, I don't know. We're in this weird environment where people just want to hate and divide and separate. And I'm like, man, like we're all humans. We need to unite but we need to hold people and our leaders accountable for fucking up. Like these are the people we're supposed to be following. And when people just push the blame off on other people, it's just like a really ugly thing.
Dude, oh man, I gotta seriously sing you some praises on the way you handled that situation, because it would have been so easy to not take accountability and look at that in a way where you say, well, I mean, if you go one state over, this is legal. Like this isn't my fault. Why are you guys out to get me? But the way you just spoke on that and you took complete ownership and acknowledged like, I fucked up, like that's respect. That speaks to your character. That's to me is just like fucking, it's just so, the excuse train would be so easy to just fucking, and then you could flip the story and say, everybody was out to get me. It wasn't my fault. I got everything stacked against me, but you're literally like, this shit happened. And it seems to me when I look at where you're at now, that could have been the best thing that ever happened to you, because, you know, like now you're making more, not that it's about the money, but you're doing it because you love it, and you got the best sponsors you've ever had. Yeah. And it's just amazing to see, you know, how that situation, I would say, probably 9 people out of 10 would have folded them and crushed them, and they would have been living in resentment fucking village and excuse alley and fucking and just like blaming the world because the world was out to get them. But the way you were able to, you know, that's where character is formed. How it's not what like your triumphs. How did you deal with the situation where you're in the fucking gutter, you know?
Yeah,
and
well,
that to me is inspiring. That whole story right there. I mean, I hunt birds. I've limited out 2 days in Wyoming, and me and my buddies brought all the birds back, and we had cleaned them already, and we didn't dress them, and we all got fined $400 for it for not dressing the birds properly, and that's just a couple guys, you know, and it's serious shit. And,
How do you know? How are you supposed to know this stuff?
I
if I just picked up hunting tomorrow, I would have no idea any of these things.
Well,
I guess
you do hunter safety. There's
find out the
in
hard
order
way,
to
I guess,
hunt, you
too.
have to do a course called hunter safety to get your license.
And they
everything.
break these kind of things
They
down.
explain all this stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, and there's no excuse for breaking the law. You know, like ignorance is not an excuse. It's like if you're going to get into something, you need to do your homework, man. Like
you guys knew you were breaking the law.
Yeah, I knew I was breaking the law. I mean, to extent, if you would have told me those were felonies,
Yeah.
I was like, whoa, like I had no idea. Like, not
It
that
was
that's
that
his excuse,
heavy.
but I was like, okay, but that's just the environment I grew up in, man. Like, we got away with a lot. Like the cops, like our cop, he was so lenient on us, and that's no excuse. Like, it was awesome. I had a great childhood. He really protected us. He understood that we were in this environment, in this country, where in a country setting where it wasn't like you didn't have to be that strict. You could kind of like give us a lot of reins. And I think that got us kind of where we were like, didn't respect the law as much as we should have, dude.
Yep.
And like, listen, man,
You're living lawless over there.
there's no, you break the law, you're going to get burnt. And like, you can continue to cut corners, but I really judge a person by their integrity, by what they do when no one's looking, you know, like what's your decision when no one's looking? And that's how you can really, really find someone's character, you know? And I always think about that. You know, I'm named after both of my grandfathers, Mark Carter and Philip Brinkman, and they were mighty, mighty men, and they were honest men. And I always know they're watching over me, even like my cousin Mark. And I was like, somebody's watching. Like, you might be able to cut this corner, but man, my integrity is worth more than anything. Like, I will drop all my paychecks in my integrity. Like, I won't look in the mirror and be disgraced by the man I am, because you can't buy that back, you know? And I see people, maybe in my younger years, I would have jeopardized that for a paycheck. But man, the older I get, I was just like, if anybody's going to have me jeopardize my integrity and what I believe in for a paycheck, they can go fuck themselves. Like, I don't
you
care.
weren't even making that much money, too. It sounds like for 3 felonies or what you even are 55 years in jail.
I mean, dude, I spent
the crime doesn't really match the punishment at all.
And it is what it is, man. And I guess that they thought that fit the crime. But I tell you, once you get messed up with the feds, dude, like,
you kind of also just glazed over Timberlake and Elton John.
yeah.
I have a guest question from Willie McMillan about that. And also, I'm supposed to, while I got you on the spot, Willie says that you don't put a Bluebird sticker on your board anymore, and he wants me to ask you about that, and he's a little bit chapped.
Oh, damn. Put me on the spot.
Yeah, what's up with that?
They quit making the middle finger one, man. So like, it kind of like bummed me out. So I kind of like that vulgar middle finger on the tip. Tell them to bring it back. I'll put it on.
There it is. You have
Do
it.
you wax your board with
And
Bluebird wax?
hey, listen, it's not even about Bluebird. That's a family. Like, dude, through and through, like those guys. I love Willie. I love everything he's done. He's done so much for me. He gave me some great advice too when I was coming up. He's like, dude, don't worry about what everybody else is doing. That's like straight up Willie. I was sitting out there on the snowmobile at Mosquito Creek, just trying to come up and do it. And I remember like people were landing and I was tomahawking. He's like, don't worry about what everybody else is doing. He's like, just do you. And I was like, oh, okay. You salty old bastard. He's been salty since he was 20, but, so much respect for Willie and like what he's helped me do in my career, you know, because he's always stood by me. And I respect that guy in a way that, dude, he'll just call it how it is.
Yeah.
You know, people
rare and sober.
that might be like offensive, but it's like, listen, dude, your feelings will heal. I promise you.
Yeah, we need more. We need more Willie McMillans in this.
We do,
in this
man.
Game. It's
bring Willie back.
It's just a different generation where that tone I think sometimes rubs some people the wrong way, but I think, Willie also thinks that people are like out to get him, but I'm like, dude, everybody fucking loves you, dude. Like, that's another
Everybody
thing.
loves Willie.
Snowboarding loves Willie McMillan.
They do.
And with that being said, let's get into this guest question.
Hey, Bombhole, this is Willie McMillan, Bluebird Wax. I got a question for my good buddy, Mark Carter. It's a two-part question. First part, tell the listeners about the day that you went and had lunch at Elton John's house and your good times with Justin Timberlake. The second part of this question is, what was it like having little miniature Nick Drago as your agent? Thanks, Bombhole. Love you guys. Thanks, Carter. Fuck you, Todd Richards. Adios.
It's a great question.
Miniature Drago. I like
wow. That. Wow, Willie. Jeez, man. Put me on the spot here. Like I said, I had who's really good friends of mine still is Rachel Yarbrough, and we dated for a few years through the really tough times, and we managed to stay super good friends. But she gave me a look into that world with Justin that coming from 10 Sleep to Wimbledon was just crazy. We went on this crazy tour that summer. We first started dating. Justin was doing all this stuff overseas, flying private jets, hanging out in France at the Givenchy store. And we ended up in London because he was doing Elton's Blue Tie and Tiara benefit, and he was the special guest. And so I'll never forget, we had to go out there early because they had the sound check and the dinner. They had this, it was out in Windsor, and it was this crazy big venue they'd built on it was one of King Henry's estates. But Elton's estate is sick. I mean, you could imagine. So we roll up into Elton's place. Justin has to go do the sound check and stuff at the stage. So we roll up in the front of Elton's house. We're with his assistant. And there's this 15-foot statue of Kate Moss doing the porcelain scorpion in the front. You drive around. I was like, whoa, okay, cool. And I brought my skateboard because I was just I wanted to get some exercise. I'd been eating fish and chips for 4 days. I was like, man, I just want to go sweat. And so got my skateboard, and the guy's just you could just leave that here. I was like, okay. I left it in the trunk and waiting for Rach. Walk up to the front door. Door opens, and I'm just waiting. It's oh, Elton John in his white Adidas jumpsuit with this rose circular shades. I'm right on. I'm Elton. I was I'm Mark. Shook his hand, and then just kind of proceeded to hang out. He was so hospitable. Hung out with him all day at his estate. He gave us a tour of the house. Just spent the day with him and his butlers, and we had lunch with him and his husband, and it was a pretty surreal day. I mean, I was never an Elton John, crazy Elton John fan, but then I hung out with him, and then I'm such a fan because that guy is integrity. He didn't have to be nice to me. I'm who am I? You're literally knighted by the Queen of England, and it just opened his home up to us, and we just hung out for the day. And then I remember we got into the evening, and that was when the party went down over there. And it was actually the day Michael Jackson died, straight up, because I remember we were backstage Justin was about to go out, and they all got the news that Michael had passed. And it was they were all connected with Michael. Johnny Wright was married to Michael's cousin. And it was just crazy. I'm just I'm literally in this moment with these people. This is crazy shit. And then went outside stage with all when we were watching the people walking into the Blue Tie and Tiara ball, it's you recognize everybody because everybody's A-list, from fucking Keith Richards to everybody. You're just oh, cool. All right. I know. Okay. And so I got to sit side stage, literally 20 feet from Elton on his piano, rocking the house. And that was probably something I'll never forget. I was just okay. I'll remember this the rest of my life. This was pretty amazing. And then Justin went out and just destroyed it too. People were freaking out. And then we got to hang out and meet some people. And it was a crazy experience in my life. That world is just so foreign to me, but it was cool. It gave me a perspective in snowboarding. I thought I was pretty hot shit. And then I was oh dude, no matter how famous you are, you're not famous. humility is like key. So, yeah, man, that was some crazy times, but that was right before the fucking wheels fell off and my life changed forever. So it all happens for a reason. You know, it was like the peak culmination of fame to just face plant, overshooting the kicker. And then, Nick Drago. Nick, Nick came in and he was like friends with everybody, and Nick's a great person, man. Like I love Nick, but it's like one of those things when you work with friends, it's probably not the best thing. And I'd had all these contracts coming right from like the natural selection. I have all this momentum. So Nick, he knew everybody. And so I just threw Nick into the mix. I was like, yeah, just manage everything. And it didn't really work out. We did it for we limped it for like 2 or 3 years, and then there was kind of a blow up, but like we're totally on good terms now. But I mean, much respect for Nick and everything he's done in the industry, because like I have nothing bad to say about him, but it was just like I wasn't a pro snowboarder and he wasn't an agent. So like we were both like this odd couple. And it is just, it was all good. It's all good.
That's killer. I kind of want to pivot back to what we were just talking about earlier too, thinking about all this stuff that you went through, and this adversity that you faced, and now you finally you round this corner, and from the way I see it, you are just like, okay, like fucking shit hit the fan. I have my life. I mean, I don't have to be in jail. Things are good. I'm just gonna fucking be me. I don't give a shit about this anymore. And it's so fascinating how just you being you has led you to the best place you are in your career. It seems like at age 41, by just kind of like doing what you're into and being what you're into. And I was kind of wondering even more so would Carter Country Meets have started had this situation not happened?
Probably not. That was an outlet. I don't think a lot of this stuff would have happened without that. Like I said, I was complacent. Like you get to a place in your life where you think everything, and that's just life, man. Like you're cruising through, like everything's going good, and shit. What they say, life happens. Shit's hard, man. Like, and I think everybody can relate to that over this past couple of years. Shit's been hard, but it's like, I have to put it all in perspective, man. It's you choose to be happy. You choose to wake up happy. And like, you might have to find the smallest little like glimmer of positivity in the morning. You're like, wake up. And if you've ever had an injury, you're like, well, I'm healthy. I can walk today. Or like, okay, I'm getting a paycheck, kind of. Like, you got to like break it down and have perspective of like, it could always be worse. Mm-hmm. Like, don't always have an outlook of poor me, fuck all this. Like you can find positivity in anything. There's always a silver lining in everything that happens. And I think, but that's so hard, especially when you're depressed or down. It's like, oh yeah, it's so easy for you to say, but like I went through that shit, man. Like I know, and there was darkness that came over me, and man, I had to find the light. And I think just your mental state and like reading and consuming positive things, when you're in a bad place, like the worst thing you can do is go look at Instagram and how everybody else is faking how fucking good their life is. It's bullshit. It's bullshit. Like all that social media is bullshit. Like if you think that's reality, man, go out, stand outside. They say how bad this world is. They say how bad this country is. Go outside and go talk to people. It's not, it's perspective, man. And the people pulling the strings want everybody to be pissed. It's like you divide and conquer. I'm like, man, we are like, I fucking love this country, man. Like for me to come up and be a pro snowboarder and get paid to do this shit, like I can only speak for myself, but I know a lot of people that have had a lot of struggle and have been able to come to a place in their life where they were like happy. Mm-hmm. Like I grew up on the ranch. Our hired hand, Lupe Murado and Bertha, like he left home in Mexico when he was 10 years old. He was kicked out of his house. Mm-hmm. Like this guy had nothing, like a 10-year-old little boy. He migrated to the US and was able to like make a life and a really good life. I still have, he was our hired hand for 25 years, the hardest working person I've ever met in my life. His hands were rocks. Like this guy would just crush your hand. I mean, and he was tough. He grew up fighting. He had knife scars on him. Like, you would talk about like a hard life, but he didn't let that get him down. He just like kept pushing. He's like, Marcos, he always called me Marcos or Gonzalez, you know? And I had so much respect for his outlook when he had nothing. And I look at him now and I'll go out there and have lunch with him and he's just so happy. But he chose all of it because he could have just laid down and given up. He had every excuse to, but he just refused. So, and that's so easy to say, you know, and I don't want to come off like, hey man, like just be happy because it's fucking hard. Like, especially when you're in a dark place, but like, you have to maybe dig really deep to find something positive, but just start there. You just got to start somewhere. You just got to get that spark of positivity. Don't consume the bullshit. Like read a good book, write. That's what always helped me, man. Like I read The Mind Gym.
Yep.
E-Jack got me on that.
Same. I read his interview, got Mind Gym. So good.
E-Jack. Shout out to E-Jack.
Let's give him an air horn. Yeah, and we've probably sold 100 of those plus from this podcast because we get DMs all the time
and
we talk about it.
Yeah, it's easy reading too, and it's like, oh man, like you just read that and you're like, oh, it's
you know, it's an interesting one too. Ryan Holiday's a great author. I've consumed all of his books, and he has a great point about basically, all right, if somebody's on a diet and they say, oh, I'm vegetarian, I'm not going to eat that, you're like, oh, cool. But we also have like a media diet, like what we consume is a media diet. How does that make me feel? But if you're like, well, I don't bring my phone to dinner, or I don't follow Instagram pages that fucking like basically talk about like shit going on in the media that's news that's bad or whatever. People are like, wait, what? Well, you're fucking ignorant or whatever it is. But still, I'm just saying that like you should regulate your intakes the same way. Like it was a great point that I thought was made.
It's your mental diet. It's like if we're really talking about diet, like it's physical and mental.
Yeah,
it's like eat healthy, consume healthy shit, be better. Like if you're just gonna digest everybody else's opinion, like man, you're gonna go to a dark spot. And we all deal with it. I feel sorry for the younger generation that's just been brought up on this is the norm, just looking at your phone. I walk through an airport. There's no human connection, man. Like nobody's smiling, nobody's talking to each other. Everybody's so scared of each other. And they're all on their phones, just like living this. It's not even reality. It's like consuming this, like, and like, what does Instagram or Facebook benefit us? It benefits them way more, you know? And it's like, it's addictive. And I'm addicted to my phone just like everybody else is. It's so easy, but man, like I just look back at my life through this pandemic and everything that's happened, and man, I came into it with a positive outlook. And I mean, the light in my world is meeting my fiance Bailey. Man, she came in, like we met so randomly, and she is just like so wise beyond her years, but she's been such a rock for me, and just like checks me, like when I'm like, maybe she's like, what are you talking about, man? Suck it up. Like she's tougher than me, and she's just like lives it authentic. And and it's so random. I never thought I'd get married, man. Like I've never met anybody I was like, that's her. And I'm 40, man. I've had a lot of girlfriends, like being a pro snowboarder, doing that life. But it didn't fulfill me, man. It was empty. It was really empty until I met her. And when I met her, I was just like, holy cow, I'm in for one here. And I randomly just proposed to her. I was just like, it's like I was back in my same cycle of habits, being selfish pro snowboarder. And she just kind of called me out, and I was like, what am I doing, dude? And I just like went in the kitchen. I was just like, will you marry me? She's like, yeah. So I was like, no ring or anything. I was just like, that's what's up. I think if I'd overthought it, it'd have been scary, but just like being able to work with her and my family and truly be in a happy place, having that support. I mean, every man needs a good woman by his side, and I think vice versa. We balance each other out, and that or a partner or whatever you're into, man. Yeah. Like, I think you need a beautiful partner by your side that's going to support you and add to your life. And that really changed my life and gave me more perspective. Yeah, I was like, maybe I want kids. I got a dog, so
There you go. Well, it's like then you got a free work hand when it's on the ranch. You know.
Oh man,
it's cheap labor. Right
well, she's like a hand too, man. Like I had her out there with my dad. You know, she broke her shoulder riding broncs this summer. She's on this kick of like riding ranch broncs, and I mean, she'd go down. She's not afraid. She is like, when it comes to horses, she has a beautiful way of moving around animals and breaking them. And she's lived in Argentina and broke crazy Spanish horses down there, and just lived on ranches, but. She never did it for the money. I mean, she never gets paid. You know, it's like just loves the experience. You know, her life is built around experiences. And she's like, I want to ride ranch broncs this summer. And I was like, girl, who am I to tell you not to do something dangerous? It's like, I'll support you. And she went to these rodeos, and they were putting her. And like, I will tell you, these male stock contractors do not want to see females getting into it. And they would put her on these rank, mean horses, just airmail her. I was like, oh. And then I sent her down to Tyler, Texas, to a ranch bronc clinic where I thought she'd get, like, they wouldn't put her on something that would kill her, get a little more experience. And dude, this horse, like this video, it made like girls getting, or like the girls a wreck, or they made one of those crazy Instagram, because it like literally looked like it killed her. This horse comes into this fence, bucks out, she's on for 5 seconds, then it just turns and kicks her right into a metal fence. Just I was shit, broke her scapula. So she's still healing from that. And then, so I have her down in the desert riding a pretty green colt and sorting crazy cows with my dad. But she's just right there, smile on her face. I'm just like, that's her. I love you, Bailey. So, yeah, tough.
Yeah. That's awesome. That's really cool to hear.
Yeah.
One thing I've just been thinking about as you're talking too, you spend a lot of time in these mountains, and our audience, so many of them are snowboarders and stuff. And what are, you know, to kind of keep it short and highlighted, what are your 3 best bits of advice, maybe actionable advice for people navigating these mountains covered in snow that can be real dangerous? Yeah,
I would say, you know, knowledge first. I would say go get your AV1, learn. Have partners you trust. Like just don't be overconfident, because these mountains will squish you. You know, listen to the signs, listen to all the red flags. There's so much information out there. The Utah Abbey is amazing. Listen to that, but get knowledge before you start getting, get a little confidence in it. But for me, it was like, all of that was great, but like having the people that mentored me was probably most important. Like having Gooch, man, like I'm so grateful to have that guy to just teach me like how to navigate these mountains, and listening to your gut. And that was all his experience, you know, passed down from Craig, and that wealth of knowledge. It's like who you go out with. And I see a lot of ego in the mountains, you know, and that worries me, because it's no place for ego. She doesn't care, you know, how good you are, or how good you think you are. It's all about the decisions you make, because man, you might come home, but like your friends might not. And I don't know how you live with that. So I would say there's a lot of preventative things you can do. If you're not feeling it, don't do it. You know, and I think that's true. Being a true pro is being able to pull out of something, feeling something, you know, you've put, and I find myself doing it. You put so much effort into this line or this shot. You've put 2 days of breaking trail, and you're standing on top of this line, but there's something off, and your gut's telling you, man, and pulling away, and maybe disappointing your whole crew, your film crew, or whatever you'd set up. It's like, dude, I don't care about the shot. It's about walking away, you know, and like, there's another day we can come ride, regardless of the work. Let's just count our losses. But I think, don't ever force it. And I think that's what's got me to this place, you know? And then being able to take people out that are a little greener than I, and getting into that's a very stressful situation. And so I'm very conservative with my decisions. Just like this winter, Mary Rand was out with me, and she's freaking awesome. Love Mary. And she, you know, we got her into some spicy stuff for the project, you know, and then Eric Leon showed up, and I mean, I threw him to the wolves. He hadn't been on a snowmobile in like 4 years, and it was literally like the techest, biggest hill climbs I did all year. And I'm seasoned, man. I was like in shape. And dude, Eric just stepped up and he was calm, cool, collected, and we got in some big lines, and I was pretty confident with the snowpack, and it was successful, and it felt great, but it didn't happen overnight. It was just like that slow roast, that slow burn to having the confidence into doing that. So, yeah, man, don't force it.
All right, it's time to talk about the bomb hole of the week. Now, Buds, what is Zip Tech and why do you need it?
Zip Tech is basically going to turn your jacket and pant into a one-piece suit. And the way it does that is on the powder skirt, there's a zipper that connects to your pants. It's patented. Volcom's the only people that have it, and it keeps you dry.
Do you think Jamie Lynn and Brian Iguchi use it?
Dude, I know they use it. Those guys don't fall much, but when they do, they use Zip Tech.
Wow, okay, that's fantastic. Now, what kind of giveaway is going on here, Buds?
What we need to see is your best bail, and let's keep them fun. It doesn't have to be powder, but let's see some powder. Let's also see some scorpions. Let's see some handrails. Hashtag volcombombproof. Put your best bail on Instagram, and we're going to pick a winner.
Absolutely. There's already been some amazing crashes that have rolled in. Keep them rolling. And again, what's the hashtag, Buds?
Volcombombproof.
Upload it onto Instagram, and you can win a little prize pack. Okay, let's take a second and take a quick break to talk to you guys about pub beer. Wow, that sounded crisp. That sounded refreshing. Now, Mark, I got to ask you, after a long day of ranching, how does an ice-cold pub beer sound?
I mean, nothing's better. Just knock dust off you, be good for you.
There you go.
Kick back, campfire, some brews. Why not?
If you're looking to do some ranching and absolutely crush can, be sure to get yourself some pub beer. It supports the show. They support us. You should support them. With that, let's get into the crapshoot. Here we go.
Cheap fun.
Welcome to the Pub Beer Crapshoot.
All right, he's got two in front of him. All right, Mark, you roll these two dice.
Oh.
Whatever it lands on, we'll tell you what you have to do.
Dude, this seems dangerous. Okay.
We're doing some gambling here.
6.
What was the name on your fake ID?
Tipton Peterson. And it was like this 27-year-old blonde tall guy. And it actually worked. Crazy.
Part 2, I like to ask sometimes.
That's dope. Sometimes you got to get an idea that looks nothing like you, and they look at it and they're like, yeah, why not?
Yeah, dude.
Who's your favorite person to party with?
Ooh. Damn. Man, Willie McMillan.
Sounds dangerous.
Yeah. He always made really good decisions, so I like to follow.
All right, well, while we're doing this, let's go ahead and hit the, let's talk about Liquid Death, Buds.
Let's do it.
So, Liquid D, I put down about, 6 of these things today?
Yeah, I got a problem.
We might need to go to rehab potentially for putting down that much.
You can drink as much water as you want and don't have to go to rehab.
That's great. It's water in a can. It looks like a beer. It baffles people. I was talking to my girlfriend's mom the other day, and she was so thrown off that I was drinking water. She couldn't believe it. So it's nice. A lot of times people think you're an alcoholic.
Yeah,
That's
water in a can just blows people away.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You get pulled over. The cop's going to want to give you a DUI, and you're going to have to say, "No, sir, this is water." That's pretty empowering.
I don't know why either. It just tastes better out of a can.
It does. Couldn't
It gets
agree more.
colder too.
If you're looking at picking up some Liquid D or Licky D, as Sage calls it, head on over to liquiddeath.com/bombhole. Again, liquiddeath.com/bombhole, and you'll get a few little koozies, and that helps us out a ton. They support the show. So, with that being said, let's get into the spinning wheel of death.
Welcome to the Liquid Death.
Death. Spinning wheel of death.
Sorry, that was loud.
Oh, okay.
We'll face the camera so the camera can see it.
So I just, does it matter which way I spin?
Nope.
Either way.
Okay. Oh, that's super.
High quality. Is it stuck?
No, I just want to make sure it doesn't. Oh, that was such a lame spin.
Okay. Lasso bombhole employee.
I don't have a lasso.
Is it in the truck?
Yeah, she drove away.
She's going to come back to pick you up.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, we can do that.
We'll drop that in.
Okay.
like I'm beef. Got him. Stones, what's for dinner?
Okay, we're going to take a second to talk to you guys about Rourke. Now, they have the layover pant collection. These things are buttery. They are the original adventure pant. It's designed for transit. They have oversized zipper pockets to fit your travel documents and keep them secure. The back phone pocket for convenience. They have laser perforated back panel for breathability. No ass sweat. You're going to get no ass sweat in these bad Larrys. They have full waistband drawstring that eliminates the need for a belt. They're TSA friendly, less hold up in the security line. I hate that when people take forever. Buds probably does that with his camera gear.
These sound like the best pants to travel in, period, right here.
And they have a two-way blended stretch fabric. Makes them super comfortable no matter how little legroom you have on the flight. Now, Carter, I know you've traveled a fair bit over the years. I know you've even flown private. But what... And I don't think there's layovers on private jets, but what's your worst layover experience?
Oh, I got stuck in Calgary for like a day and a night one time in my sweatpants, sleeping on my board bag. In that airport, I don't know, man. It just wasn't that friendly. That was probably my worst layover experience. Yeah, nowhere to go. And it was late enough, like I got in late enough and I had to sleep there, nothing open, and you're just hungry. And yeah.
Mm-hmm. It's kind of a harsh go that they make you do that. Yeah. That is birthplace of the Caesar, though.
Ooh.
I would have went out in the town and enjoyed a Caesar if I was you.
Interested. I was just afraid they wouldn't let me back in. I was just trying to get home.
I don't blame you.
Yeah, another thing we should get into, I think, is hot takes. Buds, what do you think?
Let's do it.
So we like to ask who is the greatest of all time, in your opinion, on a snowboard? Who's the GOAT? And we do both male and female. Who you got?
Holy cow. I mean, in my opinion, Kevin Jones.
Wow, love that answer.
Kevin Jones, I think, what he's done, and just from my experience, the person he is, and I mean, he just didn't wreck. Like, he was so good, and I don't think he's ever been injured, So, Kevin Jones, hands down for me. And then, I mean, I hate to put it together, but it's Tara Dikitas. Like, she's just, like, I like that. I like what she was doing, man. I like, look at her level of riding, and that was literally 15, 20 years ago. And I'm in the backcountry, and I'm kind of like, "What? Come on. Where's Tara? Bring her back." So.
Okay, next question. What is the worst trend in snowboarding? What do you got?
Bad attitudes.
Solid answer.
Great answer.
Okay, if you could go heliboarding with 3 people, who would you go with?
Gooch, Terrier, Jamie. Easy.
Solid answer. Lastly, we like to talk about on the show the beaver slap. Now, when you're in the lift line, you got snow on your board. Are you a guy to kind of like flex alpha male, just really give the board a good whack when you got snow on it? Or are you kind of a casual beaver slapper? Where are you at with the beaver slap?
I like to kick the snow off on skiers as I'm going up the lift.
Okay.
It's kind of like, I like to save it. Yeah.
So you're
no beaver
we haven't
slap.
got that answer. You save it so when someone's skiing underneath you give them the little
Yeah,
dust
you
thing.
save it.
Wow,
That's pretty tight.
Oops.
That's a degrading move. When people get you with the snow and you're underneath them, it's a little bit degrading. I've been there before.
I've been there with my camera bag open, and some skiers got me.
I'm
kind of
like,
my bad, I guess. But
man, I like to walk the line and do things that I'm not supposed to do. So, yeah.
Well, sick, dude. I want to pivot back into some of this other stuff too, talking about the way you move around these mountains, and you're a man of the land, man of the mountains, and I do think we were talking before you came to do the show when I was driving. We had a conversation, and I think you just described maybe hunting as the natural progression of the outdoorsman.
Yeah, I mean, for me, that is the natural transition, and I can only go so far in snowboarding and and what I've done in the mountains, and like going into bow hunting, and especially bow hunting, because it's so like you're so connected, like everything has to align to be successful. And as an outdoorsman, as somebody that wants to spend their entire life outdoors, like that is the natural progression for me. Like, snowboarding's great, but I can only do that in the winter. And like, you can only get so much. It's not like I can feed myself like literally with a snowboard. But with bow hunting, it's so much harder than snowboarding because you're trying to outwit these animals that it's not even fair because their senses are so much more heightened. They sleep out there every night. They're not just like vacationing in the outdoors. They're like, that's their element. And so to kind of try to outwit, it's like a chess game, and to get close enough to cut that distance and be successful. And then all the time that goes into shooting my bow. So it's just involuntary, like to shoot it, it's really hard. It's like this whole process of a whole year of me shooting, thinking until you're actually like close enough to get a shot at an animal and be successful. Because the worst thing you can do is get there and then wound something. So you have to put so much time in to your bow and like that art of just shooting the bow. And then everything from tracking to senses to like hearing to calling to, I'm just talking about elk. There's so many other things you can hunt, but it's just like that transition that I want to master, and if I'll ever master it. But when I'm on the path of like the ancient hunters and you're walking in their shoes and like, like you only have one problem when you're hungry, right? So it's just this like, it's this extreme connection that you make, and your senses are just so spot on, and you're so aware of everything that's going on because you have to be open to everything that's happening. And man, it's a different feeling. It's something that just fills my soul. I feel so good. And then walking in this high country, in this beautiful country, you just get in amazing shape. Like when you look at a mountain, you're like, I'll just walk up there. You're just like literally in such good shape. You're just like, you just walk. You walk anywhere you want with weight or whatever. Mm-hmm. And so that's truly the best transition I've found. Not that I'm transitioning on a snowboard, but like it complements each other. There's a lot of parallels within it. And, to like hone my skills in the summer, there's this thing called Total Archery Challenge. They actually do one in Park City and Snowbird.
Yeah, I heard about this.
And I mean, my friend Sean DeGray puts it on. He's been doing it. They do a bunch of stops, but it's like basically walking around the resort and simulating. It's the closest thing to simulating true hunting. You are taking these crazy shots, ranging, shooting, trying to hit through the trees, and you lose arrows. And it's like there's consequences because an arrow is $20. You like explode a carbon arrow on a rock. You're like, God. And your confidence is up and down, but it really simulates and gets you prepared for these shots that you might take with like angles and through trees. And it's the best thing I found for what I do. And I was just so fortunate to come into that world again through Yeti, like opening those doors for me. And Sloan Brown, he's the guy, like the hunting coordinator, team manager, and he really brought me into like those things. And then Sean DeGray, and it was funny because like 2 years ago, I'm literally up. I got an extended season archery tag for Park City through Yeti, and like I was hunting with Sean and Sloan, and I was like hiking the East Mountains from Brighton, like chasing some elk around with my bow, like in like 18 inches of snow, like looking at Brighton. I was like, holy cow. I'm like, I've shredded there. Now I'm hunting here. Saw this huge mountain lion up there. Got to watch it. And it was just cool. It was just kind of connecting those dots. So I don't know. That's what it's all about.
Yeah, that's killer. Now I noticed that there's so many people that are, where we live, and especially the younger generation that are diehard vegetarians and vegans, and they're gonna probably turn this off and not listen to it, to be honest. And that's absolutely totally fine. But I think there's also some misconceptions, and I also respect that that's what they're into personally. I think it's fucking awesome. It's awesome. Now, but I think since you're so knowledgeable about hunting and this, and the meat industry for that matter, I would kind of like you to sell me on hunting, like on some of the positive things that people don't see, where the money goes when you pay to hunt, things of that nature. I
mean, there's no other group of people that put more money into conservation than hunters. They will put their money where their mouth is. They pay for the tags. They put money directly into sustaining these herds and building these herds. And it's managed in a way that, you have to manage animals. There's not the natural predators there used to be. And so I think it's such a beautiful thing to put the money into conservation of these animals and have these experiences with your kids and with your grandfather and hunting. It's like more than just the money. It's like these life-lasting experiences. And I see a lot in the industries, like the snow industries. It's like, yeah, you go buy a jacket with whoever preaching how good they're doing. And it's like, yeah, I don't rely upon somebody else to like put their money into something that I believe in. It's like so easy to like be like, well, I bought this jacket and they're doing this for whatever climate change or whatever it may be. But I'm like, well, these guys are like directly paying for the animals. They're directly putting their money where their mouth is. And so that's like mad respect, you know, and it's really demonized. And I think it's just misunderstood. Those guys aren't out there to just like kill shit. It's like, it's a way of life. And if you really preach healthy living and healthy eating, like there's nothing
more free range than an elk, or there's nothing more free range organic than an elk.
Yeah. Right? And it's not like I go to the store and buy something. I mean, we all have to do that. But when you put a year into your discipline and you're successful with your hunt and you process your own animal, and you're literally like, I processed my whole elk last year and I cut it steaks, ground burger, and made jerky. And I'm like literally out there last winter eating jerky that I'd made myself and hunted. I put a year of hard work and dedication and discipline into this. And the feeling you get is just something you can't replicate through buying anything.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I don't think hunting's for everybody. I really don't. Like, you really have to be connected. And I'm not saying that it feels good to kill something. Like, I always have a moment of like sadness if I take down this beautiful animal, but this animal is going to feed me and my family, you know, and all the work that I had done to get to this point, that's what I'm here to do. And like killing for me, like I grew up on a ranch, like death is so normal to me. Like being around animals, like I've seen things die. I've had dogs die. I've had everything terrible deaths. Like I'm normal, like, but it never felt good. Like never feels good to see something die, but nothing hurts my heart more than seeing something suffer. And I will like put something out of its misery like that. Like seeing a wounded deer or something along the road, like, man, like suffering to me is just like, oh, that just kills me. So at a young age, I learned how to, you know, dispatch something. So
a couple other sidebars I was just thinking about too. And on this subject too, is I want to say the statistic, I don't know if this is correct, you could fact check this, but I want to say 90% of the money raised to protect most wild game is raised by the hunters, you know? And so
probably,
and I know that's for some animals. I don't know if that's for everyone, but I've read that statistic somewhere before. And then the other thing I think is fascinating too, is there's an argument about, you know, meat being kind of destroying the carbon footprint and things like that, and like really being bad for the greenhouse gases and all those things. And I think that factory farming is a factory, like those giant factory farm animals where they pump them full of shit. Absolutely, there's no argument there. But when you take an elk, for example, that walks around the wilderness, eats the grass, eats the shrubs, shits on the soil, it raises the soil. When the soil levels are raised, that actually reverses the greenhouse gases. So when you actually kill your own animal, you're not in any way contributing to any of that carbon footprint. So the misconceptions of that, I think, is just an important thing to talk about.
Yeah, there's a lot of misconceptions. I mean, regenerative agriculture, I think, could save the world. Mm-hmm. You know, it's not like we have millions of buffalo roaming the lands anymore. And if you understand how the animals it's all a symbiotic relationship within it, the cycle. And cows, if managed properly, are really good for the land. You know, their hooves are made to sow seeds. Like everything's built, like nature was built to like work. And like, you can't outthink that. Like we all think we can outthink it and be these gods. And I'm like, no, like we have to go back to nature to survive. And I think when we start talking about all these other things, and there's so many bullet points that all these companies want to like press on to like push their agenda or whatever it may be, and that's fine, but like you can't count out the other side of it. Like there's two sides, and like I just want to know the truth. I don't care. I think politics and anything is bullshit to me. I'm just like, how has everything gotten so fucking political? Like that kills me. I was like, oh, it's political, so let's just divide everybody. And I'm like, it's not a political thing. I was like, once it becomes political, you guys are literally puppets for the fucking man. And I'm just like, okay, that turns me off. I mean, what politics don't turn people off, And like, I just find politics in everything now. It's like, it's even in snowboarding. I'm like, why can't we have one place where everybody's just invited to have a good time? Let's not fucking push politics. And, and maybe, whatever, if you want to talk politics, that's fine. But I learned two things when I was young. Don't talk religion and don't talk politics at dinner. It's pretty easy, but I see everybody just like talking politics and religion. I'm just like, okay, well, there's a reason we're not getting along, and it goes back to like follow the money. So I don't know, man.
Like going back to regenerative agriculture, you're on a pretty good bit, I feel like, about that.
Yeah, I mean, regenerative agriculture, I think these animals can help, and I totally understand like the feedlots in these big footprints. And I think like monocropping, like it's really bad for our environment. I mean, I think a third of the emissions come from monocropping, and it's government subsidized shit, corn, all these things that, if turned back into like the natural lands with the healthy microbes in the soil, like that sequesters carbon. And I think that could really change the tide for the world.
Yeah.
But and we were originally like North Face, we were going to do a regenerative glove with them, and that's kind of it's been put to the back burner just because everything has kind of been crazy in the past 2 years. But they see it, working through the Savory Institute and like how all the soils work and how it's all like back to nature. I think is the most important thing, and we can't forget that. Like artificial is good, and I think there's certain places for it, but like all I've ever known is like the only truth is in nature, and the rest is kind of the stories we just tell ourselves. Like nature never lies. Like its intentions are there. Like animals, its intentions are there. And I think if we really dig into that, and I'm not a scientist, a lot of these things I've read up and I've seen with my own two eyes, but I think that, there's space for that. And, like I see a lot of fires burning, and I don't hear anybody talking about why the fires are burning. And yes, we are in climate change. Like I totally agree with that. But forestry management has a lot to do with fires burning. Like if you have a lot of animals like coming in and like eating all the underbrush and all this, like when you have 3 foot grass, like you have a crazy fire starter. Like that stuff grows and grows and grows. I mean, a spark gets in there, you're gonna have fires like you've never seen. And in our history, there was never that. We always had animals eating the underbrush, and it was just forestry management, a lot of it, and I think that needs to be talked about more, and they're acknowledging it, but it's not just a one-sided thing. It's not black or white. You can't just put it all in a box. There's so many layers, but we have to look at it from every direction in order to have the truth and actually make a difference. Because if we're just looking at it from one side, like, you're leaving the other side out.
Yes.
So I don't know. It's just kind of one of those things.
Sorry to pivot. I agree with you on that too. But one thing too. So let's say someone's listening and they're like, okay, I want to eat better. I want to put better food into my body. Why should they support Carter Country Meats? Sell me on that.
Well, I mean, you can buy direct from the rancher. You buy from people that are actually living it and working it, and it's super important. And like I go back to like knowing where your food comes from is knowing who makes your food. And I think a lot of that disconnect is within the food industry. And, that meat comes from the ranch. It comes from my brother. My brother's fully running the Carter Country Meats now. And I know the practices and I know how the animals are treating, and I know how it tastes. So it's great to support your local rancher. Even Carter Country Meats is great, but I mean, you can find, if you do your research, you can find local ranchers within your community that you can support. There's a lot of people, there's a lot of these little things popping up. A lot of these little ranchers are understanding that, people don't want the commodity. It's like, it's a difference between commodity, like, a locally sourced bread or locally sourced meat compared to like, Wonder Bread. It's like you can just eliminate the commodity. And the minute we all start understanding that and sourcing locally or regionally, then we can kind of change the tide with all of that. And then maybe the ranchers and the farmers can start making money again. But until that, those guys, like the slaughterhouses, 84% of the commodity slaughterhouses in the U.S. are owned foreign, and so they have like, they're just pulling the strings. They can just like have the ranchers at bay. I remember when we first started the company, they changed the regulation to there used to be a product or like country of origin on a meat package, like Uruguay or Brazil, but all these companies have come in. It's just all shystery. It's all bureaucracy, and they've come in and they deregulated that. So that basically meant that all this meat coming from South America, from all these other countries, I think there's 19 other countries that import meat. We literally, in the U.S., we do not need to import any beef. We have plenty of beef, but there's money to be made. So they started importing all this beef. They go to these big slaughterhouses owned by these super shysters, and then they process their country product of the USA. I mean, that's common. You can look it up. And that's basically undercutting all the ranchers here. And then what that really caused is, we're all mad about all these rainforests getting burned down in South America and all these countries. It's because, well, they're making room for more agriculture because there's lots more, there's money to be made. So you can't blame these guys. They're clearing land to grow cattle. And so it's just like this really bad cycle. And until the representatives, like, I don't know, aren't lining their pockets.
Yeah, they're making too much money.
Their pockets are heavily lined.
And that's what it all comes to. It's like, follow the money. Like, if you want to know the truth, follow the money.
And fish, they still put where it's from, huh? But a beef and chicken, they don't have to?
No. I don't know about chicken. All I know is beef. But, I mean, literally, like, they'll
send in the full cow and process it at the slaughterhouse.
They might not even be full cows. They'll probably be subprimals and then cut them. And then but product for the USA. So you're basically lying to your consumer. Yeah.
So the moral of the story is support your local rancher, support your local farmer.
How much more expensive is it to support the local rancher for a guy, average guy?
I mean, for the long run, it's not. It's like, it's what's going to save us. Like, we are literally on a path of like destruction with this whole mess. And it's just, people are making money, and I don't understand the greed over integrity. That really kills me. I'm like, well, you're not going to have anything left for your kids, but you're going to be rich. And what are you going to do with your money? It's like, what are we doing? Mm-hmm. And it's until these people are held accountable, until people like understand and do the work into like the research into like knowing where their food comes from. I mean, you guys live in amazing food. Like here, like you can get peaches, you can get everything in Salt Lake, like source everything here. There's ranchers, you can get anything, but it makes no sense for me to see beef shipped all the way from South America, processed, and then shipped all over the U.S. when you have beef right here. And we talk about our carbon footprint. Like, what's that carbon footprint? Like we're talking about all these things that people are so passionate about, but you don't hear anything about that. You're shipping your meat all over. Like, there's chicken companies that ship the chickens to China to get processed because it's cheaper than processing here, and they ship them back.
Whoa.
And I'm like what are we doing, guys? Like, because it's money. It's cheaper.
Margins.
Yeah. And when it's all based on numbers, like so many things are, it just gets messy, man. And people don't want to talk about it.
It's a great anecdote too, because eating healthy and eating locally, it is expensive. There's no arguing that. But eating local and eating healthy is, what's more expensive is hospital bills. It's like eating healthy is expensive. Hospital bills are significantly more expensive. And if you start looking at it like that, like it's those are your two options. You can eat healthy or you can pay hospital bills. The eating healthy through that lens starts to make a little more sense.
Well, and you look at it from a point of like you're supporting like your local community. Mm-hmm. You're not supporting these like guys you would probably not sit down and have dinner with. Your local farmer, you're going to get along with this guy. He's a hardworking, good family man generally. And I heard this statistic, I'm no scientist, but I believe it was like in the 70s or way back, it was like 18% of our paycheck was spent on food and 9% was spent on medical bills. That has switched 100%. 18% is on medical bills, 9% on food. People love to buy cheap food. It looks good, tastes good. Does it make you feel good? You know, it's tricky, man. And what I see, what they feed the kids in school is like, what? We tried to sell our beef to a school district one time. And you know, I think we sell beef for $4.98 a pound, and they were literally buying the school district. Their contract was 88 cents a pound. So I can tell you what kind of cows you're getting for 88 cents a pound. They'll basically be scooping the slime off the floor of the slaughterhouse, putting it in. That's what you're feeding your kids. And I'm like, do you care? Because I have a hard time with that, you know. And it's just unfortunate because I talked to my dad about when he was a kid. Dude, they would like anything they got, like if an animal got poached or something, the game warden would bring it to the school and the cooks would cook the food for the kids. But you can't sell wild game in the States. Like any elk, anything you see is product of New Zealand or it's all shipped in. There's no like wild game. Other than Maui Nui, I think is this venison company out of Maui that's now selling access deer USDA process to the US now, which is a huge deal. So I want to see more of that.
Mm-hmm. Super interesting. That great perspective from somebody who's got boots on the ground and has seen this shit up close. Yeah. And so we've been kind of beating this dead horse for a while talking about it, but I'm personally fascinated, and if people don't like it, they'll have turned it off. But going back, let's kind of pivot back into some snowboarding stuff, because I know you got some cool stuff going on. You got a new project. What's up with the new project?
Yeah. So we started filming 2 years ago, just kind of in the dark. You know, it's like kind of what snowboarders are supposed to do. I'm supposed to have a filmer. So my friend Fred Norquist, we got him on retainer with Yeti, and we filmed for a whole season. Had an epic season. And so coming into this season, we were trying to figure out what to do. And then I was talking to Sean and Asher, and they're like, well, let's just like roll into another season and make a project. So that's what we did. We rolled in. We got some amazing sponsors to support us, and it's called Rangefinder. And it's basically kind of my philosophy and Gooch's philosophy in life, and has some heavy hitting riding and some good just general philosophy of life and how we want to live. Beautifully shot, beautifully edited by Asher, and yeah, I think the rider list is like me, Gooch, Mary, Eric, Sage has a heater part. You know, Thank God we have Sage in there to do some double flips and such, and Pat Moore. So it was just kind of a mismatch of riders, but it was kind of just who I spent the past 2 years spending time with in the mountains. And that will be dropping, I believe. We go on premiere tour first 2 weeks of November, San Diego, Venice, and then Austin on the 9th. And then we're actually in Salt Lake on the 11th, Denver, 12th or 13th. I mean, there'll be a schedule up, but and then it drops online across all platforms, I think the middle of December. So pretty stoked on it. I didn't really plan on doing a whole project by myself because that is such a pain in the ass, but we had the footage to jumpstart it. So I was like, let's do it again. And last winter was tough, man. So it's kind of doc style mixed with riding. Yeah, it's a lot of riding, a lot of doc, but I really focused on just what I like to do in riding, you know, and it wasn't all just like hammer. And there's some crazy riding, but we spent some time at Pine Creek, a little resort riding and then I spent, we did a trip in Meadowlark with Charlie Hicks, man. You guys will get to see Charlie in there just riding with us in the Stoke. So, yeah, I'm happy. Dude, I know you've been doing so well navigating the sponsors these days. What's the sponsor list looking like? Oh, man, I got them memorized, I think. So I am so fortunate to have just such a list of amazing people supporting me. And it starts with Arbor Snowboards, the North Face, Smartwool, Yeti, Traeger Grills, Daneson Toothpicks, Protect Supplements. They make sunscreen too. They're awesome. Veteran owned. Black Rifle Coffee. Those guys are another one that I'm like, love those guys. Ranch Rider Spirits supported the project in a big way. Hana One Supplements. Daneson Toothpicks. Thank you, Oakley, for goggles and Vans for boots. all you milkers over there. And yeah, I think that kind of rounds out the list. If I forgot you, I am sorry.
Holy shit. So Drago, did he get you all those deals? Or 'cause that's a lot of deals. Who's the Ari Gold your agent, or who's the agent?
Who is your agent?
I'm my own agent, so that works. I think having that personal relationship, they can't cut me.
I have a Patreon question.
Hit it. Hey, first of all, explain why the Patreon's so important, bud.
Patreon basically keeps the lights on in here for us. Without your support, we would be nothing. Join the community. Chris and I will you get a chance to call in to our new show, ABU. You get merch. I mean,
get behind the scenes look at what we're doing.
It's basically just joining the Bombhole family, and we really appreciate you guys. This is from Tucker's Inc. What's the story behind your constant toothpick chewing? Ever have a close call with one?
You know, I get that question a lot. The toothpick came from my oral fixation with Copenhagen, so I had to ditch the Copenhagen. Found the love in the toothpick, and no, I don't have close calls, man. This thing's just another extension of my body at this point.
You snowboard with it?
Oh yeah,
just all the time, 100%.
I mean, I'll take it out and stick it in my hat if it's something super spicy. Like if I'm filming.
Cheese wedge?
Oh yeah, stick it in the hat. Dude.
Okay.
I'm not taking any chances. Sometimes I'll forget when I'm riding a line and have it in, but like Jackson Hole, Rippin' the Resort, yeah, man, and Daneson, those guys, like they make the best lumber in the business. So those guys are amazing. But
guys get a toothpick sponsor.
Yeah.
Wow, that's killer.
Yeah.
Another thing too, we love knowing about people's setups. You know, when you probably, I'm assuming you have a quiver. What's your main setup? How do you set it up? What's your angles, board, boots, bindings?
Board is my model over at Arbor, the Arbor Clovis. And then I have my Cypress model with them as well, binding. And then I was rolling the Vans Taxwood last year, which were
shout out to Taxwood.
Those are the best boots I've ever ridden. And I went back to lace because snowmobiling the BOA, I hate breaking my BOAs. So yeah, man.
And what about edges and forward lean? You rock with any of that?
I don't mess with my edges because we got the uprise fender, so I don't need to detune. And then
what's the uprise fender?
It's basically on contact points. I got a 3-degree bevel on each contact point, so it just kind of helps with float and then not contacting the groomers and stuff. And then my setup's about my width is about 22.5, and then my angles 18 front, 12 back, and then forward leans like 2 clicks on the front, like 4 clicks on the back. So, two more sponsors, Bluebird and Remind. Love you guys.
I almost forgot Bluebird, Willie.
Willie. Yeah. So
Willie was gonna say, "You son of a bitch."
I like to leave him in the dark a little bit,
and then pull him back in.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Killer. Well, I think we did it, man. Thank you so much for coming on the show. It's been a pleasure chatting with you.
Hey, thank you. Thank you. Great.
Awesome. And thank you guys for listening, watching each and every week. We got another episode coming for you next Wednesday. We'll have a link to everything that we talked about in the show notes because Bud's worked super hard on those. So be sure to check out the show notes or the YouTube description if you're watching on YouTube. And thanks again. And also, don't forget to, if you're watching this or listening to this, don't forget to subscribe to it. You don't want to miss any episodes. And that helps us out a ton. So don't be afraid to subscribe, and we will see you next week. Over and out from the Bomb Hole.